Uchiha will divide Konoha. Hey, fanfic family. So glad to see you here again to continue this incredible adventure. As always, kindly remember, this story is 100% fiction, so don't go looking for dimensional portals in your closet. All rights to this fantastic novel belong to the original author. We're just your humble narrators of epic tales. Are you enjoying the fanfic? Show it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and dropping us a like. And if you're impatient for more exclusive content, our Patreon is your happy place. Chapter 26 Changes in Zhi Shui's Mindset. Host, Uchiha Yoru, 1 Tomo, Chakra Level, Chunin, LV3, Chakra Attributes, Fire, LV3, Lightning, LV4, Sword Technique, Taijutsu, LV4, Medical Ninjutsu LV4, Gold Coins. 12.35 million. Inside the Konoha camp, Uchiha Yoru looked worried, while Shisui opposite him wore a look of shame, as if to say that he wanted to help but couldn't do anything. Shisui, Orochimaru sensei's research has reached a critical moment and requires some rare research materials. As you know, the hard currency for communicating with the outside world is gold. Seeing Uchiha Yoru's worried expression, Shisui nodded solemnly and said, "Don't worry, Yoruni, I'll contact the clan right away. This is the funding for this." After saying that, he pushed over a heavy suitcase. Upon seeing the gold in his hand, Uchiha Yoru was not happy at all. Instead, he pretended to be preoccupied and sighed. Seeing this, Shisui couldn't help but show a puzzled expression. "Brother Knight, if Lord Orochimaru has a large funding shortfall, I will definitely report to the clan head and request more." He had already pocketed over 10 million in kickbacks, which translates to at least 50 million in monetary terms, equivalent to 1.5 Asuma Sarutobi. In the original story, Kakuzu's underground bounty was 30 million for Chire and 35 million for Asuma Sarutobi. Some say this is the price of an elite Jonin, but everyone forgets their identities. An ordinary ninja has one price, but if you disregard strength and add the bonus of status, then their value will increase exponentially. Chire and Asuma Sarutobi were both among the 12 guardian ninjas of the Land of Fire, a position akin to the head of a president's bodyguards. Later, Chire became the head priest of the Fire Temple, while Asuma Sarutobi's status as the son of the Third Hokage speaks volumes. It's practically like he's the president's son. Keep in mind, the life of the Third Hokage's son is worth 35 million, no other elite Jonin could compare. And a bounty, like in my previous life, involves assassinating someone of extremely high status. Regardless of the motive, this one job, while not guaranteeing a lifetime of luxury, would at least provide a 3-year windfall. Therefore, Sarutobi Asuma's 35 million bounty is an absolute fortune. The Uchiha clan has already provided Orochimaru with over 100 million in financial support, which is quite substantial. It's just that he pocketed half of it as a kickback. "Hey, Shisui." At this moment, Uchiha Yoru showed a hesitant expression, which immediately made Shisui look puzzled and worried. He couldn't help but say in a deep voice, "Brother Yoru, have you encountered some difficulties? The clan has ordered that in the event of any incident, the Uchiha elites at the front line will prioritize carrying out your mission. Brother Yoru, it has to be said that in order to win over Orochimaru, the future 5th Hokage, the Uchiha clan has gone all out." In the original story, they had no direction, but this time, under Uchiha Yoru's leadership, they directly had a direction. Orochimaru is short of money? Fine, I'll throw money at him, just to gain his trust, the trust of a future Hokage. Seeing Shisui's solemn expression, Uchiha Yoru hesitated for a moment before sighing. "Shisui, Orochimaru sensei has shed countless blood for the village, and he even painstakingly developed wood-release ninjutsu. But now, judging from Orochimaru sensei's words, it seems Danzo is using this to threaten him." "What?" Shisui was shocked upon hearing this, then suppressed his shock and asked in a deep voice, "What's going on?" It has to be said that in Shisui's mind, the Third Hokage, Danzo, and the other high-ranking officials were all disciples of the Second Hokage, especially Danzo, who was the Hokage's right-hand man. How could he be threatening Orochimaru for no reason? You must know that Orochimaru sensei is not only the future 5th Hokage, but also the disciple of the Third Hokage. Seeing Shisui's shock, Uchiha Yoru shook his head and sighed. "I don't know about these things. I think Danzo didn't want Orochimaru to become Hokage, given his anger." "What about the Third Hokage? Did the Hokage know about Lord Danzo?" Shisui suddenly paused, not finishing his sentence, but seeing Yoru's bitter smile, he seemed to understand something. How could the third Hokage not know? After all, he was the Hokage. But why didn't he stop him, and even seemed unwilling to let Orochimaru become Hokage? All these questions were deeply buried in Shisui's heart, his mind buzzing. It seemed that in his memory, he saw Orochimaru as someone who completely respected and blindly trusted the Hokage. But suddenly, he seemed to realize that the brilliance surrounding Danzo and the soon-to-be retired third Hokage had dimmed slightly. This is the influence of preconceived notions. Orochimaru, with the aura of the Hokage, commanded trust and respect from Shisui, while the aura of the soon-to-be retired Hokage naturally diminished. This comparison only added to his confusion. Why was even the third Hokage standing idly by? After all, Orochimaru was the Hokage's disciple. Shisui, Uchiha Yoru said firmly, Danzo can only delay Orochimaru's succession to Hokage for a short time. He hasn't done much. Besides, Orochimaru has already begun experimenting with wood release again for the village. Once another wood-released ninja appears, with this immense achievement, no one will be able to stop Orochimaru from becoming the fifth Hokage. He didn't speak ill of the third Hokage, nor did he criticize Danzo. He only stated that Orochimaru was poised to become the fifth Hokage with the achievement of the wood-released ninja. After all, no one would have imagined that a ninja with Orochimaru's identity would defect. One of the legendary Sannin, a disciple of the third Hokage, a strong contender for the fourth Hokage title, and the future fifth Hokage. With all these accolades, not only Shisui, but even the Kage of other countries wouldn't believe it at this point. If you told them now that Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin of Konoha, was going to defect, they would definitely laugh it off. Brother Knight, don't worry, this time I will personally report the importance of the matter to the clan head, and I will definitely help Lord Orochimaru succeed. At this moment, Shisui could accept human experimentation. After all, the second Hokage had done it, and the third Hokage had done it during his reign, all for the sake of the village. Lord Orochimaru was also doing it under orders, naturally for the village's sake as well. After all, look, it succeeded. Seeing Shisui's assurance, Uchiha Yoru also revealed a resolute expression, nodding solemnly and saying, Shisui, I'm entrusting this to you. Danzo has almost completely cut off our teacher's research funding. This is our only chance. Regardless of whether this experiment succeeds or not, as long as Orochimaru becomes the fifth Hokage, the Uchiha will regain the Hokage's trust and will definitely return to the center of power in Konoha. These resolute words, filled with longing for the future, immediately ignited Shisui's fighting spirit. He said in a deep voice, Don't worry, Brother Yoru. The Uchiha clan may lack other things, but they certainly don't lack money. Wow, that's incredibly extravagant. No wonder they're Konoha's #1 wealthy clan. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru, who had been feeling somewhat guilty, secretly muttered to himself after hearing these words, I still need to work harder. Look, they themselves said they're Konoha's #1 wealthy clan. They lack everything, but they don't lack money. You said he was also trying to save the Uchiha clan and had been working hard for them. What's wrong with spending some of his own family's money? Isn't that normal? Please support me. Chapter 27 Political Struggle. On the Konoha border, Orochimaru, as the commander-in-chief responsible for the defense of the Land of Lightning and the Land of Water, is sometimes unpredictable due to his research, but he still occasionally appears at the camp to organize intelligence and military deployments. Uchiha Yoru has clearly become Orochimaru's trusted deputy, casually helping to retrieve intelligence scrolls and assigning tasks, doing what he can, similar to Hokage's assistant. The Land of Lightning and the Land of Fire are not directly adjacent. Instead, two smaller countries sandwich them, acting as a buffer zone between the major powers, essentially a battlefield for the great powers. It is also adjacent to the Land of Iron, and then to the coastal area with numerous island nations. The Kirigakure ninja from the Land of Water frequently cross the border, making this defense line directly guard against both the Land of Lightning and the Land of Water, demonstrating Orochimaru's immense prestige. Orochimaru-sensei, recently the Land of Lightning and the Land of Water have been primarily using spies to constantly probe our strengths and weaknesses. Meanwhile, some resentful smaller nations have been frequently impersonating ninjas from the Hidden Cloud Village and the Hidden Mist Village, using framing and sowing discord to incite war between the major powers. Looking at the familiar intelligence reports, Uchiha Yoru shook his head with a smile as he analyzed the situation. Orochimaru, however, chuckled hoarsely and disdainfully, placing their hopes on a war between major powers resulting in heavy losses, giving smaller nations a chance to rise. How laughable. They don't realize that major powers will never allow smaller nations to continuously grow stronger. Orochimaru had seen this tactic far too often. Smaller nations already have limited breathing space, and with the constraints of major powers, discontent naturally arises. These smaller nations want to instigate war between major powers so they won't have time to deal with them, allowing the smaller nations to seize the opportunity to develop rapidly. Little did they know, after the emergence of the Rain Country, which dared to threaten and provoke the five great nations, the five great nations were already on guard. The Rain Country's success was not replicable, and the five great nations would not allow another Rain Country to appear in the ninja world. Yoru, please take care of the troubles on the front lines these next 2 days. In half a month, a new commander-in-chief will be in charge of the Lightning Country. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoru was taken aback, but Orochimaru wore a nonchalant, horse smile. Yoru, politics is a troublesome thing. Like now, someone has come to steal the fruits of our labor. At this moment, Orochimaru showed no anger at being taken advantage of. Instead, there was a hint of disappointment in his golden eyes. It seemed he had already realized something. Some people in the village still didn't want him to become the fifth Hokage, not even his teacher, or rather, the Sarutobi clan. Orochimaru-sensei, we've sacrificed so much for the Land of Lightning, and the situation has only just stabilized, yet now someone else is claiming the credit. It's so unfair. Uchiha Yoru showed his indignation. Since becoming Orochimaru's disciple, and given Orochimaru's willingness to delegate authority, he naturally knew all the confidential personnel changes on the front lines after Orochimaru demonstrated his potential in political affairs. Orochimaru, as the commander-in-chief on the front lines, single-handedly led the Konoha ninja in defending against two major powers. The turbulent situation had just calmed down, especially in the Land of Lightning, which was becoming increasingly stable. The credit that was about to be theirs had been snatched away by someone else. How, Yoru, you're still too young? Orochimaru's horse smile showed no resentment. However, when the scroll for the new commander of the Land of Lightning was handed over, Uchiha Yoru's pupils constricted upon seeing the person in charge. Sarutobi Shinosuke, the eldest son of the third Hokage, now the head of the Anbu. Upon seeing this name, Uchiha Yoru immediately recalled information about the Hokage from his previous life. The third Hokage's eldest son and daughter-in-law, a lead jonin of the Anbu duo directly under the Hokage, known as the third Hokage's right-hand men, and the parents of Sarutobi Konohamaru. Although the names weren't explicitly stated, Uchiha Yoru knew the name of the third Hokage's eldest son. In this situation, he narrowed his eyes. The Sarutobi clan had come to reap the biggest rewards. Sarutobi Hiruzen was the Hokage, his eldest son and daughter-in-law, the so-called right-hand men of the Anbu, were essentially the Anbu's head and deputy head. Now that the eldest son had stepped out of the Anbu, it was clear he was going to come out into the open and directly reap the rewards. Thinking of this, Uchiha Yoru looked at Orochimaru's casual, horse smile and felt a deep irony. Was this the difference? After all, it was only human nature. When comparing one son and disciple, everyone knew which was more important. However, for him, this might be good intelligence. Uchiha Yoru immediately revealed a thoughtful expression. It was valuable, and very worthwhile. Konoha. Inside the Hokage's office building, Hiruzen Sarutobi was puffing on his pipe, while in front of him stood the Anbu chief, his eldest son, Sarutobi Shinosuke, who had removed his Anbu mask. Shinosuke, from now on you are a jonin of Konoha. The border defenses with the Land of Lightning have stabilized. When you go, remember to proceed cautiously and avoid impulsive actions. Maintain the current situation. At this moment, Hiruzen Sarutobi was no longer simply the third Hokage, but also a father earnestly instructing his son. Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Shinosuke frowned, puzzled. Father, why won't you let me go to the front lines in the Land of Water? The Land of Lightning is stable now, but there's not much merit to be gained there. Sarutobi Hiruzen slowly shook his head, took a deep drag on his pipe, exhaled a puff of white smoke, and then said in a deep voice, Orochimaru and Denzo are too close. Root's actions have almost completely betrayed the will of fire. I truly hope Orochimaru can see the error of his ways. This seemingly irrelevant answer left Sarutobi Shinosuke frowning in confusion. Seeing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head and sighed. You're going to the front lines in the Land of Lightning isn't just the idea of all the higher-ups, but also the idea of this old man, the third Hokage. Orochimaru seems to have gone astray. The higher-ups don't want to see him go astray, And it's not just the Sarutobi clan's idea. Just go and follow the established procedures. In the future, you'll be the Jonin leader, the third Hokage, his gaze veiled in the swirling smoke after exhaling a thick cloud of smoke, his eyes filled with a complex emotion. Orochimaru's ideology was too dangerous, especially since he had witnessed it completely contradicting the will of fire. Now, he could only use this opportunity to teach his most prized disciple a lesson. As for the thoughts of the higher-ups, he was well aware of them. They simply didn't want the increasingly powerful Orochimaru to ascend to the Hokage position. Many had even begun secretly contacting Jiraiya, but Jiraiya clearly didn't want to get involved and simply avoided them. Then there was the Sarutobi clan. They certainly didn't want their clan leader to step down from the throne of power and were even more eager to see Orochimaru's authority crumble. Ideally, the Sarutobi clan would seize more benefits and power during this period. For example, the Jonin class leader. Once Sarutobi Shinizuke became the Jonin class leader, the Sarutobi clan would truly reach the pinnacle of power. The Hokage would be Sarutobi, the nominal Jonin class leader would also be Sarutobi, and the head of the Anbu would be a member of the Sarutobi clan. The only thing missing was another Sarutobi as the future Hokage. Please read on. These next 2 days are crucial. Friday will be the day of life or death. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Promising the Hyuga Clan Big Funds. News had spread that Sarutobi Shinizuke was about to arrive at the Konoha front to take over the defense of the Land of Lightning, and many were already showing signs of discontent. After all, this was a feat they had accomplished while following Orochimaru, and now someone was trying to reap the rewards. If one could come, two would. After all, how could someone parachuting and not have their own trusted confidants? This wasn't just about stealing Orochimaru's credit, but also about diminishing their own achievements. How could they be satisfied? Lord Hisashi, inside the wooden hut at the front, when Uchiha Yoru respectfully approached the head of the Hyuga clan to request an audience, the branch family patriarch, despite his usually stern expression, showed his respect, bowing and saying, "Yoru-kun, you're too kind." Uchiha Yoru himself was merely a chunin, while the other was an elite chunin. Therefore, he had to address him as Lord, a distinction of rank, especially within a large clan. Uchiha Yoru was Orochimaru's disciple, a status that compelled Hyuga Hisashi to return the courtesy, a privilege that came with his position. The two exchanged pleasantries. "Lord Hisashi," Yoru said, "Orochimaru-sensei sent me to inquire about the upcoming reorganization of the front lines. What is the distribution list for the Hyuga clan? Originally a single front, it was now being divided into two commanders, one responsible for the defense of the Land of Lightning, and the other for the Land of Water. This necessitated the redeployment of frontline personnel, especially those from the major clans. Yoru's visit represented Orochimaru. After all, everyone believed that even with political reasons, the village could only delay Orochimaru's rise to power, using this time to gain some advantage, but no one expected such a ninja to defect. Therefore, when faced with Uchiha Yoru's question, Hyuga Hisashi respectfully nodded and said, "Yoru-kun, you can just call me Hisashi, no need to be so polite." As the most rigid of the Hyuga clan, they paid great attention to etiquette. Knowing this, Uchiha Yoru didn't take the polite words seriously, instead smiling and nodding. "Captain Hisashi, thank you for your trouble." Adding captain was the respect a chunin would show to a jonin. Adult seemed too distant. The title captain actually helped to build rapport, and Hyuga Hisashi immediately showed a forced, friendly smile upon hearing it. While strength was paramount in the ninja world, before you reached the arrogant cage level, interpersonal relationships were the core of this world. The Hyuga clan has already made arrangements. Yoru-kun, this is the Hyuga clan's list. Please take a look. Having already received news that the Land of Lightning would send a commander-in-chief to reap the rewards, the various clans were naturally prepared. Looking at the scroll handed to him, Uchiha Yoru smiled. Upon opening the list, Uchiha Yoru's smile deepened. Sure enough, everyone in Konoha now believed Orochimaru becoming the fifth Hokage was only a matter of time, and the Hyuga clan was also betting on Orochimaru. The list of those sent to the Land of Lightning consisted almost entirely of Hyuga members from the branch family, while the list for the Land of Water also primarily included Hyuga branch family members. The presence of the branch family head in the list spoke volumes, and more importantly, several members of the main family were also arriving from the rear. The Hyuga clan's sincerity was evident. Uchiha Yoru smiled and nodded, saying, "Thank you very much, Captain Hisashi, Yoru-kun, you're too kind." The polite formalities were well maintained. Inquiring with the various clans beforehand was precisely for this list. One reason was to see who would be joining them, and another was a privilege of powerful clans. If it were a commoner ninja, sorry, you just had to wait for orders and go wherever you were told. But it was different for powerful clans. By inquiring beforehand, they could address any discrepancies beforehand. Privileges have never disappeared, from ancient times to the present. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru narrowed his eyes, finally understanding why the Hyuga clan was about to be tricked. It seemed to stem from their political misalignment. And did the Uchiha even care about that? Since the founding of Konoha, the Uchiha had no place in politics. Captain Hisashi, there's something I'm hesitant to say. After a moment's hesitation, Uchiha Yoru showed a troubled expression. Hyuga Hisashi, though a member of the branch family, was still considered half a clan head. His brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. He secretly wondered if Orochimaru was testing him. Please speak plainly, Yoru-kun. The Hyuga clan will certainly do everything in its power to help you. Hyuga Hisashi's words were watertight and perfectly measured. As for the claim that the Uchiha and Hyuga clans were at odds? Nonsense. There's absolutely no conflict of interest between the two clans. The Hyuga clan specializes in reconnaissance and close combat ninjas, while the Uchiha, though known as all-around ninjas, primarily focus on ninjutsu and shuriken. These two powerful clans have never had any conflict of interest. The so-called conflict of interest is simply the Uchiha's desire to enter the power center of Konoha, that's all. Seeing Hyuga Hisashi's impeccable eloquence, Uchiha Yoru not only showed no displeasure but also smiled. Captain Hisashi must also be aware of the Anbu's situation in the village. Anbu? This sentence instantly alerted Hyuga Hisashi, and he immediately guessed that this was Orochimaru's test, not the Uchiha's. Uchiha Yoru, with a relaxed smile, continued, Captain Hisashi, you should know the problems Orochimaru-sensei will face after succeeding as the 5th Hokage, just like the situation after the 4th Hokage took over. Since the founding of villages in the ninja world, there had never been a case where a new generation succeeded the previous Hokage before the previous one died. The 3rd and 4th Hokage of Konoha were the first to do so, leading to a clear power conflict. The 3rd Hokage was still a Hokage, even though he was about to step down. But what was the significance of that position? Although he was considered a high-ranking elder, he still needed to be distinguished. Therefore, the decision made by Konoha was to retain the 3rd Hokage's Anbu authority. In the anime, during the Nine Tails Night, someone shouted that it was the 3rd Hokage's Anbu, clearly indicating that there was also a 4th Hokage's Anbu. Thus, the 3rd Hokage's Anbu became an independent department similar to Root, while the newly appointed 4th Hokage, Namikaze Minato, had to rebuild his own Anbu, relying on the existing Anbu as support until then. Upon considering this question, Hyuga Hisashi's face flickered slightly. Once Orochimaru inherited the position of 5th Hokage, the first problem he would face would be establishing the 5th Hokage's Anbu. Yoru-kun, what do you mean? Hyuga Hisashi had clearly guessed something, but he remained composed. Uchiha Yoru, however, smiled and nodded slightly. That's right, Orochimaru-sensei's 5th Hokage's Anbu needs manpower. This was an olive branch, a way to win people over in advance, offering tangible benefits. The Anbu is like the imperial guard of an ancient emperor, the Hokage's trusted confidants. What do you need? Hyuga Hisashi was cautious. Although the temptation was great, it was clear that it wouldn't be offered lightly. Seeing the other's interest, Uchiha Yoru smiled and nodded, funding. Preferably gold. The Hyuga and Uchiha clans will each have 2 members. The Anbu were selected from commoners to avoid family conflicts of interest. But don't underestimate these 2 spots. Members sent from major clans are undoubtedly elite shonen. With that level of skill, becoming a squad leader in the Anbu is practically a certainty. That's real power. Hearing this, Hyuga Hisashi's breathing quickened, while Uchiha Yoru smiled. He was using his master's resources to raise funds for his research. As a disciple, it's only right to serve his master and solve his problems. Presumably, Orochimaru wouldn't mind. After all, no one thinks having too much money is a bad thing. He wouldn't dare do that with anyone else, but Orochimaru is someone dedicated to research and willing to delegate authority. More importantly, He knows to take advantage of this opportunity while it lasts, otherwise, if his master defects, there will be no more chances. Please continue reading and support. Chapter 29 Kusanagi Sword. Knight-kun, you've really solved my urgent problem. Orochimaru, inside the wooden hut, looked at Uchiha Knight standing respectfully before him. This disciple, merely a political bargaining chip, had never imagined would be so helpful, truly giving him the feeling of a capable assistant. Of course, this assistantship wasn't in research. After all, while Uchiha Knight possessed special Jonin-level medical ninjutsu, it was still lacking. The feeling of being a capable assistant stemmed from financial resources. It seemed that since taking this disciple in, he had hardly worried about funding for experiments. In fact, the disciple had even begun recruiting people for him in the Uchiha name. Orochimaru-sensei, it was all voluntary. Uchiha Knight's eyes were filled with unwavering determination, as if he firmly believed in and looked forward to his teacher becoming the fifth Hokage, and that others, including the various clans, shared this view. As for his disciple meeting with representatives of the various clans at the camp, Orochimaru was well aware of this. In his eyes, it was merely the Uchiha's way of getting him to become the fifth Hokage faster. Or perhaps it was the Uchiha clan trying to show their sincerity, and even more so, to establish a significant contribution. Look how many connections I have helped you build. Orochimaru then let out his characteristic horse laugh. Head, I found that since Yoru-kun and the Uchiha clan came along, things have become much easier. This was the first time Orochimaru had mentioned the Uchiha clan, and Uchiha Yoru showed an excited expression, nodding solemnly. Orochimaru-sensei, rest assured, the Uchiha clan will always stand firmly behind you. Among them, the Inuzuka and Aburim clans have expressed their goodwill towards you, offering 50 million in financial assistance, while the Hyuga clan is even willing to offer 200 million. But they hope that Orochimaru-sensei will consider candidates for the Anbu after he succeeds to the Hokage position. He had clearly already promised them, but now he was saying it was the Hyuga clan's idea, truly a double dealer. Upon hearing this, Orochimaru narrowed his long, golden eyes, a wicked smile spreading across his face. After a long pause, he chuckled hoarsely. How, the Anbu? Not entirely out of the question. Orochimaru's smile was indifferent. Konoha was supported by the various clans, while the Anbu was an exception, the Hokage's elite force, mostly composed of commoners. The major clans were essentially part of the Hokage's lineage, the Uchiha were simply an outlier. Therefore, the clans were merely showing goodwill towards the future Hokage. Their investment was simply for the future. Having failed in his bid for the fourth Hokage position, Orochimaru was no longer so obsessed with it, but it seemed everyone was pushing him towards the throne. After all, the third Hokage was old, and his retirement was due to the immense sacrifices of the Third Shinobi World War. Therefore, countless people were now investing in the future Hokage. Orochimaru probably never imagined he would become a rogue ninja. Human experimentation has been practiced since the second Hokage. There's precedent. Otherwise, how could techniques like the impure world reincarnation have been developed? Furthermore, Orochimaru established so many secret research bases within Konoha. While he did have some hidden bases of his own, these were merely using his position for personal gain. Consider the Sarutobi clan's supposed 3,000 ninja. How did they come to be? The original story also mentions Orochimaru's human experimentation. He joined Root, but only with the authorization and support of Danzo, the Root leader. Do you think the Hokage wouldn't know about such a large-scale operation? It's safe to say Danzo followed suit, secretly abusing his power to allow Orochimaru to research wood release. All of this has precedent. Teacher, Orochimaru smiled casually. He was no longer interested in politics these days, and waved his hand, saying, "Don't worry, what the Hyuga has, the Uchiha will have too." This grand promise, it's no wonder he's considered one of the Hokage contenders. After all, how can someone who doesn't understand politics become a Hokage candidate? Upon seeing this, Uchiha Yoru nodded excitedly and emphatically. Don't worry, Orochimaru-sensei, the Uchiha clan will do everything in its power. Loyalty. Anyway, he didn't represent the Uchiha clan, it was just that some people treated him as their current representative. Night Lord, I see you're not only talented in medical ninjutsu, but also in swordsmanship. I was originally planning to give you this chakra weapon when you were promoted to Jonin, but I think I'll pass. Orochimaru's wicked smile trailed off as he raised his neck, and a terrifying sight appeared. His throat gurgled as if he were about to spit something out, and a dark-colored snake slowly emerged from his mouth. then opened its mouth again and spat it out. Upon seeing the chakra weapon, Uchiha Knight couldn't help but show astonishment. It was this divine weapon. The Kusanagi sword is rumored to be forged from the hardest substance in the world, practically identical to chakra metal. Are you satisfied, Night Lord? Retracting his tongue, Orochimaru, with a sinister smile, swung the long, black, straight sword, instantly washing away the slime on its blade. Looking at the divine weapon handed to him, Uchiha Yoru was filled with excitement. For a ninja, this was a priceless treasure. Thank you, Orochimaru-sensei, respectfully accepting the Kusanagi sword that belonged to Uchiha Sasuke in the original story. Uchiha Yoru was deeply grateful for Orochimaru's generosity. It had to be Orochimaru, he always knew how to invest. Orochimaru chuckled hoarsely, a smile playing on his golden eyes. It wasn't that he was being generous, but rather that the other party was worthy of his investment. From a personal perspective, the other was his disciple, and he had even awakened the Sharingan, making becoming a Jonin a very real possibility, not to mention his training. Giving him a divine weapon he didn't need was perfectly reasonable. From a profit perspective, this disciple had brought him considerable benefits, and it would also increase the Uchiha clan's trust and inclination towards him, leading to more research funding. A double win, a win-win situation. Satisfied, Uchiha Yoru sheathed the Kusanagi sword in his lower back, a smile of excitement spreading across his face. Orochimaru chuckled and said, "The boulder has been relatively stable lately. Remember to diligently execute your training plan." Yes, Orochimaru-sensei, it must be said, Orochimaru was undoubtedly the most responsible teacher. His training plan was entirely based on scientific principles, aiming for near-perfect results without overloading the body. Rather than being a reckless act born of passion. The original text hinted that the Kusanagi sword was a type of sword, not a specific individual. This afternoon was a matter of life and death. After all, they were almost at 70,000 words, and if the initial push didn't come, it would truly be a flop. Chapter 30 The inextricable bond between the Uchiha clan and the waterfall. After Sarutobi Shinosuke took over as the commander-in-chief of the defense of the Land of Lightning, a period of peace lasting only 2 months was disrupted by renewed turmoil. March. 5 months have passed since the Nine-Tails attack last October. The Land of Fire is located on the border of the Land of Water. Brother Yoru, Uchiha Shisui said solemnly before a small waterfall. Yoru, seeing this, remarked that the Land of Fire truly lived up to its reputation as the most prosperous region in the ninja world. Resources were abundant, almost like they were free, especially the towering trees resembling ancient forests and the ubiquitous waterfalls. It's unclear whether the Uchiha clan has a special connection with the waterfalls. Madara Uchiha was stabbed in the Valley of the End, Sasuke Uchiha was beaten twice in front of the waterfall at the Valley of the End, and Itachi Uchiha contemplated suicide in front of a waterfall as a child. It seems only one person has ever committed suicide by waterfall. Thinking of this strange and inexplicable connection, Uchiha Yoru looked at Shisui with a peculiar expression. It seemed that only Shisui, the Uchiha who died under the waterfall, possessed the ability to use the body flicker technique. Shisui, however, was unaware of Yoru's thoughts, and even if he did, he wouldn't be thinking about such things. Brother Yoru, news has come from the village that they are preparing to recall Lord Orochimaru, and the defense of the Land of Water will be handled by the Uchiha and Hyuga clans respectively. Shisui solemnly revealed something the village was secretly preparing. Uchiha Yoru was indeed startled. This wasn't an act, after all. Kishimoto hadn't explained these details. From the Nine-Tails attack to the beginning of the story, only the Kakashi Anbu arc and the Uchiha clan massacre arc were described, with no mention of Orochimaru. Brother Knight, Shisui frowned and called out to the stunned Uchiha Knight. Knight was immediately startled and looked puzzled. Shisui, why is the village bringing back Orochimaru-sensei? He was truly confused. As he continued to analyze the situation, Uchiha Shisui shook his head and sighed with a grim expression. Brother Knight, some people in the village have gone astray with their will of fire and fallen into darkness. Good heavens, Uchiha Knight was stunned upon hearing this. Looking at Shisui, it seemed as if he was saying, is this something you should be saying? Shouldn't you be the most loyal to the will of fire? Shisui sighed softly with a complex expression. He was only 14 years old this year, but he acted like an adult. Brother Knight, some people in the village don't want Lord Orochimaru to achieve too much merit, so they want to recall him. And the Land of Water is using our Uchiha and Hyuga clans to replace Lord Orochimaru. Their intentions are despicable. Uchiha Shisui is clearly filled with anger as he said the latter part, gritting his teeth. Some people are secretly sowing discord between the Uchiha and Hyuga clans and Lord Orochimaru. It was obvious that Shisui had deviated from the original story. Since being opened up to another worldview, in his eyes, Orochimaru was someone who carried the darkness for the will of fire of Konoha, a true inheritor of the will of fire. But some people, for some ulterior motives, were starting to target the future Hokage he envisioned. This was unforgivable. Seeing Shisui's current state, Uchiha Yoru was completely bewildered. He hadn't expected such a drastic change and exclaimed in astonishment, "Shisui, what exactly happened? Tell me properly." He was truly bewildered. What was Shisui thinking? What had happened? Was the world developing too fast for him to keep up with? Or had Shisui simply changed too quickly? Uchiha Shisui, his face contorted with anger, exclaimed, "Brother Yoru, do you know that some Sarutobi clan ninjas in the village are constantly stirring up trouble, saying that Orochimaru wasn't there during the Nine Tails attack? If Orochimaru had been there, the fourth Hokage wouldn't have died. Furthermore," he continued, "some people are even secretly saying that Orochimaru has been working closely with the Uchiha clan for a long time. Some are even slandering him with some evil conspiracy, claiming that the Nine Tails attack might have been orchestrated by the Uchiha and Orochimaru together, all for the sake of the Hokage position." Good heavens! Hearing Shisui's analysis, Uchiha Yoru's eyes widened in disbelief. Was this Shisui, who kept mentioning Orochimaru, really the same Shisui of the body flicker technique he knew? No, Shisui, don't get agitated. Some things can't be said carelessly. How could the Sarutobi clan do such a thing? The third Hokage would never stand idly by. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru's mind seemed a little fuzzy, and he looked anxiously at Shisui, pleading, "Let's calm down and talk this over. Let me sort this out." Shisui had clearly touched on the will of fire, a sore spot for him, and his face darkened as he said, "Brother Yoru, I saw this with my own eyes when I went back to the village to escort supplies. I also saw news from the village. Although the third Hokage has stopped the spread of these rumors, but the third Hokage actually wants to recall Orochimaru to the village. The land of lightning had just stabilized, and they were about to reap the rewards, but Sarutobi Shinisu came to steal the fruits. Now, the land of water was also about to stabilize, and Orochimaru's almost gotten rewards were about to disappear again, all because of some despicable manipulation. Making the Uchiha and Hyuga clans the ones to reap the rewards is clearly an attempt to sow discord between them and Orochimaru." In Shisui's eyes, this move was utterly disheartening, especially considering the immense efforts the Uchiha clan had made. A single transfer order could render all their contributions futile. If, in the original story, Shisui saw the third Hokage as an act of goodwill from the Hokage's faction, then now it was the Hokage's faction constantly provoking the Uchiha, naturally fueling Shisui's resentment. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru finally understood what was meant. Someone in the village didn't want Orochimaru to return with such immense credit. Otherwise, with the current achievement of pacifying the border, anyone with ulterior motives could easily call for the fifth Hokage's election. Having figured all this out, Uchiha Yoru looked at the indignant Shisui beside him and immediately feigned a wry smile, shaking his head and saying, "Shisui, don't overthink it. The third Hokage only inherited the second Hokage's will to guard against us Uchiha, but he is definitely the Hokage who inherited the will of fire. He would never do such a thing. In short, you're starting to doubt the third Hokage, but I'm going to do the opposite." Under what circumstances would someone become so firmly disillusioned with the third Hokage? He was going to great lengths to establish a strong belief in the village and the third Hokage in front of Shisui, letting Shisui gradually discover things and turn the tables, persuading him instead of him trying to persuade him. At this moment, Shisui looked at the unwavering Uchiha Yoru, hesitant to speak, and then suppressed his dissatisfaction and suspicion towards the village and the Sarutobi clan. Once you vent, you feel better, but if you keep the frustration inside, it will ferment and eventually explode. Thanks for the support, brothers. This is a trial run. Thank you. Chapter 31 analyzes the timing of Orochimaru's defection. Shisui, you must believe in the third Hokage. Orochimaru-sensei is the third Hokage's disciple. Perhaps after we return, he'll become the fifth Hokage? If that's true, then all these achievements are meaningless, since Orochimaru-sensei is about to become the fifth Hokage. Uchiha Yoru had transformed into heartfelt, loyal Uchiha clansman, seemingly telling Shisui not to be so extreme. Shisui, however, secretly began to doubt himself. When had he started to doubt the village? He had actually stopped trusting the Hokage. Damn it. A deep sense of guilt welled up inside him, and Uchiha Shisui looked at his guiding light with gratitude. Brother Knight, thank you. I was too impulsive, indeed. After Knight's persuasion, Shisui realized he had gone astray and even showed a look of shame. But Knight secretly shook his head. Once Orochimaru returned and found that the entire Hidden Leaf village hadn't nominated the 5th Hokage, his dissatisfaction would resurface in double measure. Breaking Shisui's will of fire against the 3rd Hokage was never something that could be done overnight. It required a long time, ideally with Shisui witnessing it firsthand. If it weren't for him, the Uchiha wouldn't have formed a relationship with Orochimaru now. After Orochimaru returned to the village, Shisui would still be struggling to gain the Hokage's trust. He wouldn't have had time for such things. But things are different now. Orochimaru isn't just seen as a future Hokage by the Uchiha clan, even within the village, at least 60–70% of the ninjas, if not 100%, believe he's the future Hokage. To place all hopes on Orochimaru, and to project an image of him as a shining example of someone secretly bearing the burden of darkness while forging ahead, is, tisk. Seeing Shisui filled with shame and even self-reproach, Uchiha Yoru chuckled and patted him on the shoulder. Shisui, you're still young. It's good to have your own opinions, but you can't blindly trust anyone. You need to consider things from multiple perspectives. Understand, Brother Yoru. Shisui was narrow-minded. This time, Shisui truly realized his mistake, and Uchiha Yoru nodded with a smile, saying, don't worry, we'll apply to return to the village this time. Anyway, the border is quite stable now. We can't miss Orochimaru's ceremony to become the 5th Hokage. In short, I'm going to make Uchiha Shisui completely believe one thing, that Orochimaru was summoned back to the village to become Hokage. Once this hope fills your mind, you'll know how beautiful your dreams were and how cruel reality will be. At this moment, Shisui, upon hearing that Lord Orochimaru was going back to become Hokage, immediately showed excitement, unaware that a dark experience awaited him. Brother Knight, I will definitely witness Orochimaru become the 5th Hokage. Shisui's eyes were filled with unwavering determination, practically fanatical. He could already envision the future reconciliation between the Uchiha and the Hokage lineage, and the Uchiha regaining the village's trust. However, Knight, standing beside him, frowned in deep thought. After analyzing the situation, he seemed to have discovered something different, given the limited information Kishimoto had provided recently. In the original work, Orochimaru's defection didn't have a definitive date, but fragments could provide a general outline. When Orochimaru defected, the 3rd Hokage was in the village. Upon hearing the news, he angrily led the Anbu to capture him. This confirmed that Orochimaru was either not in the village or nearby, definitely not far away. The second clue was a scene in the anime where Itachi Uchiha was training alone, about to be riddled with kunai. At that moment, Orochimaru, secretly watching, was preparing to rescue him. At this moment, Orochimaru was clearly still wearing his headband, having not defected. It's unclear how old Itachi was at this time, but one thing is certain, Itachi had activated his Sharingan and dodged countless kunai. As the son of the clan head, Itachi's training chamber would naturally be within the clan. Orochimaru's presence suggests that the Uchiha clan had established a connection with Orochimaru, otherwise, Orochimaru wouldn't have been able to appear so openly within the Uchiha clan. According to various sources in the original work, Itachi awakened his Sharingan at the age of 8, meaning Orochimaru was still a Konoha ninja before Itachi turned 8. If that's the case, then there should be about 2 more years. After careful analysis, Uchiha Yoru smiled, his eyes narrowing, while Uchiha Shisui remained lost in self-reproach. His 2 years were a concrete amount of time. Itachi was 5 years old on the night of the Nine-Tails' death, but Naruto's birthday is October 10th, meaning Itachi would be 6 and 2 months. They had just seen each other recently. 3 months have already passed this year. Next year, Itachi will be 7, so there's still a whole year left. The year after, Itachi will be 8 and awaken his Sharingan. Orochimaru likely defected after Itachi awakened his Sharingan. He still has almost 2 years to improve his strength. Itachi is 8 years old, 5 years older than the main characters, who will be 3 at that time. Thinking of this, Uchiha Yoru smiled excitedly, amusement creeping into his eyes as he looked at Shisui beside him. Shisui, when we get back, we'll witness the 5th Hokage's inauguration ceremony firsthand. Shisui nodded with a determined smile. Don't worry, Yoruni, the Uchiha clan will definitely be there. In his mind, Yoru was Orochimaru's disciple, and would become a direct descendant of the Hokage. Wasn't this the bridge between the clan and the Hokage? He was naturally full of confidence. However, Uchiha Yoru didn't think so. Instead, he sneered, fearing that Orochimaru would be shelved upon their return. In the original story, during the Chunin exams, there were clearly many children older than the Konoha 1s, such as Neji and Kabuto, who were at the bottom of the rankings. When Orochimaru defected, the Konoha 1s were probably only 3 years old and hadn't even heard of Orochimaru's legend. What about the older children? Clearly, Orochimaru was being sidelined, and even the entire Hidden Leaf village was subtly diminishing his prestige. At the very least, it's safe to say that Enzo and the Sarutobi clan were involved. Perhaps the Third Hokage didn't intend this, but he certainly didn't stop it. Instead, he tacitly approved. This is because, as can be seen from the original story, the Third Hokage already felt that Orochimaru had gone astray, as evidenced by his recommendation of the Fourth Hokage. Or perhaps it wasn't just Orochimaru, the existence of the entire Sannin was downplayed. In the original story, when the Sannin appeared, they were referred to using legendary ninja terminology, which clearly indicates that only the older generation of ninjas remembered them, and a generational gap had emerged. The reason for downplaying the existence of the legendary Sannin is clearly to consolidate the current power pyramid within Konoha. If the Sannin intervene, the power structure will be reshuffled, and no one wants that to happen. Hell, perhaps I've already deduced the truth. Uchiha Yoru smiled, his eyes narrowed. Shisui, hearing this, assumed his older brother was referring to the upcoming election of the fifth Hokage upon returning to the village. The two men, speaking in one sentence, were thinking completely different things. Please cast your votes if you like this. Chapter 32 International Dynamics. Just 2 months after Sarutobi Shinnosuke took over the defense of the Land of Lightning's borders from the Land of Fire, the defense of the Land of Water was also taken over. Years of hard-earned gains were snatched away, and Orochimaru, one of the 3 legendary Sannin, was ordered back to the village. When this news spread, countless ninjas on the front lines frowned secretly. It seemed this was going too far. Orochimaru was still a hero of Konoha. In the Land of Lightning, in the Hidden Cloud Village, the relatively young Fourth Hokage, looked at the intelligence report and his rugged face furrowed deeply. Orochimaru back to the village? The front lines have been replaced by Sarutobi Shinnosuke, the Uchiha, and the Hyuga clan? What is Konoha doing? They're utterly disrespectful. He had just eased the pressure on the front lines a little, and Konoha was already pushing their luck. Wasn't this a veiled threat of changing personnel? Raikage's eyes widened with anger. Inside the office, the mature-looking Tsuchishiro, seeing the hot-tempered Raikage, shook his head with a wry smile and said, Raikage-sama, although Konoha lost a Fourth Hokage and some elites during the Nine-Tails attack, its strength is still formidable. Regarding the intelligence from the front lines, perhaps there's another piece of information that deserves our attention. Tsuchishiro, a Junin of Kumagakure, was a courtier of the Raikage and the examiner of the legendary lightning release, lava release. In his youth, he enjoyed the deep trust of the Third Hokage and possessed the lava release bloodline limit, the rubber uncle Naruto referred to. Tsuchishiro handed over a specially retrieved intelligence report, his expression growing even more serious. The Fourth Hokage opened the scroll with displeasure, and upon seeing the intelligence within, his brow furrowed, especially when he saw the date at the end. A look of seriousness flashed in his rugged eyes. Tsuchishi, you mean you received the intelligence about Sarutobi Shinnosuke's arrival at the front 2 months ago? The intelligence itself wasn't the problem, but the timing was crucial. 2 months ago, nobody knew Sarutobi Shinnosuke was on the border as a commander. That was the biggest issue. The Fourth Hokage's expression immediately turned serious, and Tsuchishi nodded gravely, saying, the timing isn't the issue. The problem is that the person who relayed the intelligence doesn't seem to be one of ours, although it was transmitted through one of our spy networks. That spy has been captured by Konoha, and that line was essentially abandoned. Unexpectedly, someone has suddenly sent back information. Hearing this, the Fourth Hokage's expression turned grave. Tsuchishi, this intelligence transmission needs to be upgraded. We must monitor it closely and be on guard. Both were seasoned veterans of the ninja world, and had seen it all before. Tsuchishi nodded even more solemnly. Lord Raikage, rest assured. Since this line of communication could transmit information, there are only 3 possibilities. One is that our people haven't been exposed, but that's highly unlikely. Second, Someone in Konoha is dissatisfied with the authorities or too greedy, so they're betraying their village's interests. Third, this could very well be a trap set by Konoha. It's common for spies to be arrested, and then the other side to use that spy's information to transmit false information. Even worse, some use this information to transmit important intelligence themselves, thus proving their betrayal of the village, usually with demands for money. Sometimes, they even orchestrate a larger scheme, using real information to sacrifice some of their own interests for greater gains, only to reveal their true intentions at the last moment. Lord Hokage, their objective is clear. They're simply trading intelligence for gold and some precious medicinal herbs. After Tsuchishiro presented the materials demanded by the Konoha spy, the fourth Hokage, scoffed. Give it to them. Someone capable of leaking this information isn't low-ranking. As long as the intelligence is accurate, we'll give it to them. Yes, sir. Ninjas always prioritize intelligence. Whether the person is real or not, they're at least of immediate use. A few supplies are perfectly normal. If they didn't want anything, he'd be suspicious. While the spy was trading intelligence for gold and herbs, they also had a dedicated department to verify the information's authenticity. They wouldn't be easily fooled. It all depended on the tactics employed by both sides. However, this time, the Cloud Village miscalculated. After expending countless resources, they discovered it was all for nothing, because the information they received was absolutely true, without a trace of falsehood. Hijiri, order the front lines to prepare for another probing harassment, to see what tricks Konoha is playing. Yes, the more composed and experienced Hijiri didn't hesitate at all upon hearing this. Instead, he was full of praise for his Hokage's lightning-fast reflexes. This was the kind of character a Kage should have, reckless but never foolish, rough yet shrewd. In the land of water, in Kurigakure, in a dark space, Sujetsu Hazuki slowly opened his sharp teeth, his eyes filled with amusement as he looked at the intelligence report in his hand. He grinned bloodthirstily and said, "Head, it seems there are quite a few like-minded people in the ninja world, betraying one's village's interests to gain power and strengthen oneself. There's never a shortage of such people. Just like him, hadn't he secretly betrayed the interests of some villages before? Hell, but your appetite is a bit too big, demanding so many precious medicinal herbs and gold. But I'll grant your wish. I hope you, little mouse, won't try anything funny. As for the other side setting a trap?" This question was a joke to Sujetsu Hazuki. With such a major incident in Konoha, the village had decided to launch a probing war against them, limited to small-scale conflicts. Kurigakure never cared about these sacrifices, they only cared about profit. In the land of Earth, in Iwagakure, in the tall Tsuchikage's office, the short Tsuchikage, unlike his white-haired self during the Fourth Shinobi World War, was still clearly full of energy. Looking at the intelligence report requiring an upgrade, Inoki frowned frequently, his expression grave. Another selfish person betraying their own village's interests? Or is it another self-directed scheme? Muttering to himself, Inoki, a veteran of 3 Shinobi World Wars, was full of wisdom. Looking at the intelligence report, when he saw the final requirement, his brow furrowed. Such an appetite, but it's not impossible. As long as the intelligence is accurate, it's worth it. Muttering to himself, Inoki placed the intelligence report on the table and stamped it with an S-rank seal. Order the intelligence department to keep a close eye on it, and to conduct thorough analysis of any significant intelligence. As for the gold and medicine they're demanding, as long as it doesn't exceed the value of the intelligence, then give it to them. Having finally discovered a high-ranking traitor within Konoha, he naturally wanted to press his advantage. Of course, it could also be a trick by Danzo, a figure hidden in Konoha's shadows, but such methods are common among nations. It's a matter of who has the superior skills and their respective game-playing abilities. He needed to restrain himself. Chapter 33 Shisui. You must believe in the will of fire. Konoha. After half a year, Uchiha Yoru and Shisui's group finally returned to the village. The tension from the front lines was palpable, and returning home brought a sense of relief. This return was rather uneventful, especially for Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin. Seeing the deserted gates of Konoha, a hoarse smile appeared on his face, and he licked his lips. With that hoarse laugh, Orochimaru slowly entered the village. This scene might seem insignificant to others, but to Uchiha Shisui, it was utterly ironic. Lord Orochimaru was a hero. Since the Nine Tails attack last October, for a full 6 months, Lord Orochimaru had single-handedly shouldered the pressure of facing 2 major powers and countless smaller nations. The pressure on the front lines was unimaginable, yet the situation had been calmed down in less than 6 months. And yet, this great hero had returned to the village in such a disgraceful manner. Shisui himself didn't even realize that a sense of dissatisfaction was rising within him towards the current Konoha Hokage leadership. Brother Knight, how could the village treat Lord Orochimaru like this? On the way back, Shisui couldn't help but lower his voice and confide in Uchiha Knight, whom he trusted. Seeing Shisui's expression, Uchiha Knight feigned seriousness and gave him a solemn look. Shisui, you must believe in the will of fire. This may be the thought of some rotten people, but it's definitely not everyone. You must believe in the village. While Uchiha Knight appeared to be solemnly warning Shisui against having terrible thoughts, he was secretly delighted. That's how people are. The more you talk, the more you suppress the urges in their hearts, the more they escalate. If he vented along with Shisui, he would naturally start reflecting on his earlier mistakes. He wanted to block all possibilities of Shisui's venting, forcing him to suppress all the terrible thoughts he had, waiting for the right moment to erupt completely. Brother Yoru, I didn't. I've always firmly believed in the will of fire. Shisui, though a Jonin, seemed genuinely guilty in front of Yoru, a Chunin. It was as if he had truly harbored resentment towards the Konoha leadership, and his words betrayed his true feelings. Seeing Shisui's expression, Yoru smiled and patted him on the shoulder, saying, Shisui, perhaps the pressure on the front lines was too much? Relax after you come back, don't be too tense. You must believe in the village, believe in the will of fire. Reassured by Yoru, Shisui smiled, but inwardly he was suspicious. Had he really begun to doubt the village's leadership? No. How could he do that? He had only felt indignant about Orochimaru's treatment, but now, after Yoru's words, he actually felt the village had gone too far. Humanity. Uchiha Yoru was brimming with confidence in his ability to control human nature, and a smile even appeared on his face. He wanted to make Shisui feel guilty. The more guilty Shisui felt, the more convinced he would be of the evil thoughts lurking within him. Once those thoughts were suppressed, they would be forever imprinted on his heart. Let's go. It's been half a year since I've been back. I missed home so much. Accompanying Shisui, Uchiha Yoru wore a casual smile. However, when Shisui tried to say something, he suddenly saw the smile on Yoru's face and didn't know what to say. Just as Uchiha Shisui was hesitating and uneasy, the two arrived at the new Uchiha clan compound after its relocation. They stopped. Shisui looked up at Uchiha Yoru, whose smile had froze, seemingly in disbelief. He felt even more uneasy and embarrassed. In the past 6 months, he had at least made several trips to escort supplies, so he naturally knew about the clan's situation, but his older brother Yoru didn't. The Uchiha clan compound that had been relocated was beyond remote. It was practically a deserted forest. Surrounded by dense forests, filled with fresh air and bird song, the newly renovated Uchiha clan territory was 3 times larger than before, yet it gave off a feeling of isolation, to put it nicely, seclusion, to put it bluntly, isolation. Brother Knight, Uchiha Shisui hesitated for a moment before speaking, trying to comfort his older brother. However, Uchiha Knight reacted first. So this is the new clan territory. I knew the village trusted us Uchiha, otherwise, they wouldn't have allocated us such a large area, haha. His casual smile betrayed a clear forcedness, and even when he spoke of the village again, the confidence from before was gone, replaced by a strained air. This sight only made Shisui feel more ironic. Uchiha Yoru forced a smile and patted Shisui on the shoulder, saying, Shisui, quickly take me to see the house the clan assigned to me. I've heard you say before that this house is no less prestigious than the clan heads. You always said you were incredibly envious. Amidst laughter, the two slowly stepped into the Uchiha clan compound. The moment they entered, countless eyes, filled with numbness and loneliness, stared at them, as if everyone was watching them. However, upon seeing that they were their own clan's ninja, everyone immediately smiled. It seemed that at this moment, this was truly home. Uchiha's cold gaze was a facade for outsiders, concealing his loneliness. Haha, Shisui, so this is the house the clan had bestowed upon you? It truly lives up to your words of envy. Such a large courtyard. You'll have to work hard in the future, Shisui. Uchiha Yoru's carefree laughter only made Shisui feel more guilty. Clearly, the other party was using a smile to mask the emptiness within. Before entering the village, he had sworn to believe in the village and the will of fire, and even warned him not to have any such fearful thoughts. But reality slapped him in the face so quickly, The Uchiha were clearly being isolated. Brother Knight, this is a reward specially prepared for you by the clan head and elders, saying you've rendered great service to the clan. At this moment, Shisui, pretending not to see your forced smile, changed the subject with a smile, saying that you had rendered great service to the clan, and this was a reward from the clan. Alright, Shisui, you should go back now. I need to go back and check on my new home. He seemed to be urging him to leave, but this was the most worrying part. Shisui hesitated for a moment, then a concerned look appeared on his face as he looked at his older brother, who so firmly believed in the will of fire, and asked, Brother Yoru, are you alright? Yoru, of course, saw through Shisui's insincerity. He turned around, feigning a resolute expression, and looked at Shisui intently, saying in a deep voice, Shisui, you mustn't overthink things. You must believe. Once Orochimaru becomes the 5th Hokage, everything will change. This is all temporary. Looking at Yoru's resolute expression, with a hint of warning and determination in his eyes, Shisui nodded solemnly. Brother Yoru, don't worry, I believe everything will change once Orochimaru becomes Hokage. Humans are like that, the more you try to stop them from overthinking, the more they'll start to imagine things in a completely different direction. Don't worry, brothers. The author is a full-time writer. As long as the book performs well, there will definitely be a lot of updates after it's released. Chapter 34 Uchiha Crouching Dragon and Phoenix Chick. Uchiha Clan Territory, Naga Shrine. Inside a dimly lit stone chamber, clan head Fugaku and elder Setsuna sat side by side. Looking at them, Uchiha Yoru couldn't help but wonder, was this some kind of traditional quirk of the clan? A preference for discussing matters in dimly lit, secluded rooms? Yoru, the clan remembers the honor you've brought to the clan through your contributions. After a round of motivational platitudes, Uchiha Yoru feigned excitement, nodding solemnly. Clan head, elder, for the proud Uchiha, you're spouting platitudes, so I'll naturally join in. There's a saying from my ancestors, when you don't have the power to change everything, you must learn to integrate. Yoru, what is the purpose of the village summoning Orochimaru back this time? As expected, the traditionally arrogant Uchiha clan didn't inherit the Hokage lineage's penchant for speeches. A few words of inspirational platitudes were all it took to get straight to the point, something Uchiha Yoru appreciated most. However, he disagreed. Once he gained a voice within the clan, he would definitely study the Third Hokage's speeches more thoroughly. Fugaku and elder Setsuna both cast inquiring glances. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru couldn't afford to overthink things and respectfully said in a deep voice, Clan head, elders, things aren't looking too good. What happened? Fugaku and elder Setsuna both looked grave. They knew that the Uchiha clan was practically ostracized by the entire village. They had finally managed to get on Orochimaru's good side, and they didn't want to see anything go wrong with that connection. Uchiha Yoru sighed softly and began to explain. Clan chief, elders, Orochimaru-sensei has always wanted to become the 5th Hokage, but this transfer to the front lines is clearly a way to steal credit and gain power. He even subtly hinted that some people in the village don't want to see him become Hokage. I specifically asked Orochimaru-sensei. If you were a Hokage without any foundation, it would be fine, but with his current faction, once he becomes Hokage, the village's interests will be reshaped. Uchiha Yoru frowned as he said the latter part, seemingly confused. However, when this reached clan chief Fugaku and elder Setsuna, their expressions changed drastically. They understood perfectly well what he meant. Elder Setsuna couldn't help but curse. Sure enough, the Sarutobi clan is restless. Hiruzen Sarutobi simply can't bear to part with the benefits he has. Elder, don't be impulsive. Fugaku, though agreeing, restrained himself and tried to persuade the elder. However, elder Setsuna, representing the Hawkish faction, wouldn't yield so easily. He sneered coldly. Fugaku, haven't you figured it out yet? The village's interests have just been divided. Once a new 5th Hokage emerges, he will inevitably represent a new power rising, which will certainly affect the interests of the various clans in the village. They don't want that, especially Hiruzen Sarutobi. He's clearly greedy for power. Seeing his expression of utter disapproval of Hiruzen Sarutobi, clan chief Fugaku shook his head and sighed. He didn't know how to persuade him anymore, so he turned to Uchiha Yoru and changed the subject, asking another question. Yoru, do you know about Orochimaru's plans after returning to the village? This was the key question. What was Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, going to do? He couldn't just leave him in the village as a mascot, could he? Elder Setsuna was also drawn in. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru truly sighed. Orochimaru had actually told him through his summoning beast, which was what made him sigh with both admiration and respect. The political skills of the Hokage lineage are truly impressive. He had to understand this political perspective from the perspective of 5,000 years of history, while the ninja world is still relatively new, and the 5 great nations have only existed for a few generations. These political tactics are clearly the result of years of experience. Clan head, elders, Orochimaru sensei is now a member of Root, and says he's going to carry out a top-secret S-rank mission. At this point, Uchiha Yoru looked up at clan head Fugaku and elder Setsuna. Before they could ask further questions, he adopted a posture of prioritizing the clan's interests and began to speak in a deep voice about a top-secret mission. Root plans to restart the wood release experiment and another human experiment. I don't know the specifics yet. I do possess some decent medical ninjutsu, which is why I caught the master's eye. Upon hearing this, Fugaku and elder Setsuna reacted differently. Fugaku secretly breathed a sigh of relief, as long as it wasn't a major operation. Elder Setsuna, however, seemed to have thought of something and let out a cold snort of annoyance. Restarting the wood release human experimentation program, what is the village trying to do? Isn't it obvious? This is clearly a way of keeping an eye on the Uchiha. Wood release can suppress tailed beasts, and it's also a powerful weapon against the Uchiha. It has to be said that this hawkish elder's hostility towards the village is unparalleled. However, Uchiha Yoru secretly shook his head, sighing inwardly. The Uchiha have always remained outside the center of power. They lack the foresight of the Hokage, honed through years of political maneuvering. This is clearly a plan to shelve Orochimaru. A top-secret mission, perfectly suited to Orochimaru's tastes, and it can also defuse the impending political crisis. No need to select a 5th Hokage. The interests of the village's higher-ups are protected. Things are back to normal. How wonderful. However, no one could have imagined that this shelving might have completely extinguished Orochimaru's faith in Konoha, or perhaps, the moment this all exploded would be the moment Orochimaru truly gave up. Clan Chief, Elder, according to my investigation, the village's wood release experiment was unexpectedly successful several years ago, which is why it's being restarted this time. What? When Uchiha Yoru revealed this information, Fugaku and elder Setsuna were immediately shocked, their expressions changing drastically. Wood release. Perhaps Fugaku wasn't fully aware, but elder Setsuna knew all too well what a terrifying force it was. The village actually succeeded? And they're restarting it. At that moment, all the resentment in elder Setsuna's heart vanished instantly, replaced by a deep fear. Wood release. Only those eyes could counter it. Until the Uchiha possessed those eyes, they absolutely could not afford to clash with Konoha again. Clan Chief, Elder, Orochimaru Sensei said that although the last experiment was a success by accident, this time the chances are much higher. In 2 years at most, with our full support, Orochimaru Sensei, with this immense achievement, will be able to claim the Hokage position. This was naturally Uchiha Yoru's own idea, but it resonated differently with Clan Chief Fugaku and Elder Setsuna. They were shocked, but also suddenly realized something. Yes, if Orochimaru succeeded a few more times, with several wood-released ninjas, nothing could stop him from becoming Hokage. Their eyes instantly blazed with fervor. They couldn't stop the wood release plan, but they could get close to the future Hokage. Wasn't the Uchiha's current goal to rebuild trust with Konoha? Who cared about wood release? Besides, they couldn't control it anyway. However, they didn't know that this so-called wood release was a completely watered-down version. It could easily withstand even a 3-tomo Sharingan, let alone the main Gekkai Sharingan. In the original story, Sasuke easily defeated Yamato with a 3-tomo Sharingan, wood release. These two words echoed in the minds of Uchiha clan leader Fugaku and elder Setsuna. It took them a long time to process them, and they were still shocked. Had the village gone mad? Obviously not. Then there was another possibility. Konoha had made a breakthrough in wood release. Seeing the clan head and elder's self-constructed thoughts, Uchiha Yoru took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Clan head, elders, although the village has restarted the wood release project, the funds allocated are far from sufficient due to the turmoil in Konoha." The fastest to react after Uchiha Yoru's words was elder Setsuna, who sneered, Good. The third Hokage's plan is indeed excellent." At this moment, not only was Uchiha Yoru stunned, but even the clan head, Fugaku, looked puzzled. Elder Setsuna looked at the two and sneered, "Is there even a question? which research project isn't measured in years? If the wood release project were so easy to develop, there wouldn't have been only one accidental test subject over the years. Even with one, Orochimaru would need at least several years to achieve a breakthrough, not to mention the current lack of funds. The Third Hokage, the entire Sarutobi clan, including the current high-ranking members, are all planning a delaying tactic. Isn't the lack of funds precisely what can delay Orochimaru's ascension to Hokage? At this moment, Elder Setsuna transformed into a shrewd strategist, revealing a disdainful sneer. Truly a despicable tactic. Delaying for years, while Orochimaru will likely be confined to his research for the next few years. Time is the strongest weapon. Will Orochimaru's prestige still be as strong as it is now? Elder Setsuna seemed to have seen through everything. The Hokage's upper echelons were unwilling to relinquish their power and were trying every means to delay Orochimaru's ascension to Hokage. Clan head Fugaku, upon hearing this, also showed a look of realization, nodding with a serious expression. Elder, you are right. However, this is also an opportunity for the Uchiha? Fugaku and Elder Setsuna exchanged a glance and then smiled. Perhaps it wasn't good news for Orochimaru, but it was good news for the Uchiha. Wasn't this an opportunity delivered to their doorstep? They had been worried about not having a close enough relationship with Orochimaru and not having done enough favors. Now the opportunity had arrived. Night. The clan is prepared to provide Orochimaru's research funding with all its might. At this moment, the two made their decision. Such a golden opportunity, who would easily give it up? Seeing the two brilliant men, Uchiha Knight immediately showed excitement and solemnly nodded, saying, Clan head, elders, for the glory of the Uchiha, I, Uchiha Knight, will stand firmly behind Orochimaru-sensei. The clan's secret meeting ended, and Uchiha Knight had completely entered the center of power within the Uchiha clan, thus deciding the future direction of the Uchiha. As for the bad ending of associating with Orochimaru, it should be said that the ending for anyone associating with the Uchiha was generally bad. Let alone the Uchiha, countless clans in Konoha wanted to get on Orochimaru's good side. Even though Orochimaru was now facing the crisis of being sidelined, he was still a highly sought-after figure. Now, the high-ranking officials of Konoha were all old. How long could they remain in power? Orochimaru is currently in his prime, and the new generation hasn't even matured yet. At least for the next 5 years, only the Sannin are qualified to compete for the 5th Hokage position. The Sannin. Jiraiya was unruly, Tsunade had gone far away, and neither of them chose to withdraw during the 4th Hokage competition. Now, more than a year later, no one can match Orochimaru's popularity. As for the higher-ups delaying tactics, it's only a matter of time. Therefore, countless people are trying to find ways to get on Orochimaru's good side. Back in the luxurious house assigned to him by the clan, Uchiha Yoru squinted, pondering his plans for the next 2 years. After all, according to his calculations, Itachi is 6 years old now, 7 next year, and when Itachi awakens his Sharingan at 8, that's roughly the time Orochimaru will defect. Host, Uchiha Yoru, 1 Tomo, Chakra level, Elite Chunin, Chakra attributes, Fire, LV3, Lightning, LV4, Swordsmanship, Taijutsu, LV4, Medical Ninjutsu LV4, Gold coins. 21.35 million. Looking at his stats, Uchiha Yoru immediately felt a pang of regret. He had worked so hard for half a year, taking such great risks, trying to profit from both sides, and only managed to consume so little. He felt ashamed. These gold coins were enough to evolve his Sharingan into 3 Tomo Sharingan, but so what? Evolving into 3 Tomo Sharingan would at most push his physique and chakra to the special Jonin level, and that would take time. More importantly, wouldn't his Sharingan evolving too quickly arouse the greed of some people? After all, his current identity was very sensitive. There were definitely people in Konoha who wanted something bad to happen to the Uchiha who were close to Orochimaru, especially Danzo hiding in the shadows. Thinking of this, Uchiha Yoru pondered to himself, ninjas rely on intelligence. My sudden medical ninjutsu might be able to fool people, but I need to prevent my Sharingan from evolving before Orochimaru's defection, or at most, keep it to 2 Tomo. Therefore, I must become a Jonin, or even an elite Jonin, within the next 2 years to have real power within the clan. If Orochimaru still possesses the same strength after 2 years, he'll truly be a discarded pawn. However, if he has sufficient strength and operates skillfully, he might be able to inherit a portion of Orochimaru's legacy. Remember, in the original story, Orochimaru had been defecting for 10 years, Yet there were still new generations in Konoha who idolized him. This shows how influential Orochimaru was. And how could someone who could contend for Hokage not have a group of followers? That's his legacy. If Orochimaru defects, these followers will be the first to suffer. With the Uchiha clan behind him, he's naturally not afraid. But what about the others? Thinking of this, Uchiha Yoru smiled. Perhaps I need to improve my strength in the next 2 years, or rather, become a decent genius in my teacher's eyes, but I can't have too much talent in bloodline limit. A long chapter of 4,000 words is here, updated ahead of schedule. Please support, thanks to, for the 200 coin reward, and for the 100 coin reward. Thank you to all the brothers for your support. During the new book period, please follow along, please vote, please recommend, please do everything. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Revisions to the previous chapter. Sorry, I just noticed that today's constitution is Kiss Ames. This was the initial plan, but it was changed later, and I overlooked this. It's been corrected now, sorry. As for which powerful figure's constitution I'm exchanging for, you guys can guess. Chapter 36 Strengthening Kakashi's Talent, the Third Hokage's Physique. Exchange for a Tutomo Sharingan, costing 1 million gold coins. Exchange for Shippuden Kakashi's ninjutsu talent, costing 10 million gold coins. Exchange for Third Hokage's physique talent, costing 10 million gold coins. Instantly, a powerful, tingling, and numb sensation swept through his entire body. Uchiha Yoru endured the excruciating pain and itching. This unbearable feeling came and went quickly, dissipating in less than 2 minutes. It wasn't that he didn't want to exchange for the Uzumaki clan's talent, but it was already at bloodline limit, and it was way too damn expensive. As for exchanging for the Third Hokage's physique talent, it was more like a physical talent enhancement, since it wasn't even within the bloodline limit, just a talent that excelled in a certain area. It was essentially an enhancement of a certain talent in his body. Panting heavily, Uchiha Yoru looked up and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. As expected, my guess was right. Besides the bloodline limit change, physical enhancement is also a gradual process of development, but Kakashi's hand seal speed is direct. Although the Third Hokage only appeared in a few episodes, he was an extremely amazing existence, especially since the evaluation was one he had carefully considered before making his decision. The Third Hokage was able to fight a tailed beast one-on-one, and even the Eight Tails was exhausted, which shows that in terms of stamina and chakra reserves, he was definitely at the tailed beast level. After all, it was a head-on battle. Especially in the final battle, he fought against tens of thousands of ninjas for 3 days and 3 nights before dying from exhaustion. Moreover, in terms of the Third Hokage's affinity for lightning-style ninjutsu, this exchange was more like an enhancement based on the Third Hokage's physical constitution. Feeling the changes in his body, Uchiha couldn't help but smile. I'm practically a genius in chakra control now, considering I'm Kakashi at his peak. Kakashi's ninjutsu talent was undoubtedly exceptional, evident in his hand seals and the A-rank ninjutsu chidori he created at age 12. During Shippuden, Kakashi's hand speed while standing on the lake was dazzling, as if he were on super fast playback, instantly unleashing a ninjutsu. However, only Uchiha Yoru truly understood the changes in his body. Hand seals. It's not just about speed, hand seals are for manipulating chakra within the body. For example, a certain seal can mobilize the flow of chakra in 8 meridians, but depending on the ninjutsu, the speed and location of chakra flow in each meridian need to be precise. Therefore, the speed of hand seals is determined by the speed of one's own chakra manipulation. Just like how, if your chakra circulation and manipulation are fast enough, your hand seal speed will naturally be fast enough. Otherwise, everyone in the ninja world would know the advantage of fast hand seals and would have already trained to improve it. The speed of chakra circulation is initially innate, what we call talent. Some people are born fast, their speed is inherently a level above others. Others are trained through accumulated chakra circulation and practice, a skill that requires perseverance. Even a half-second difference in hand seal speed can determine life or death, let alone saving over a decade of training, reaching a level that countless people can never achieve in their entire lives. After all, Kakashi Hatake became a Jonin at 12, and his hand seal attributes were maxed out in his records, demonstrating his talent in this area. In Shippuden, Kakashi was already 30 years old, meaning he has now directly reached the level of his Shippuden self in terms of hand seals. In other words, his hand seal, chakra manipulation, talent has already surpassed the maximum, considering he's only 15 years old now, while Shippuden Kakashi was already over 30. More importantly, there's ninjutsu. Ninjutsu is divided into 4 levels, S, A, B, and C, and there are also levels of difficulty in training. If your chakra circulation isn't up to par, no matter how much you practice, you won't succeed. Not to mention, some profound ninjutsu require the mobilization of so many chakra meridians that ordinary ninjas simply cannot achieve that level of control. The two-tomo Sharingan appeared in his eye sockets. Uchiha Yoru smiled as he felt the changes in his body, muttering to himself, "Awakening the two-tomo Sharingan has accelerated my physical transformation. This makes the sudden increase in my chakra flow speed somewhat understandable. As for the Third Hokage's physique, that's a slow process anyway, perfect. In the ninja world, awakening a bloodline limit or its evolution is a transformative experience. Many people even go from being the worst student to a genius, because bloodline limits are inherently difficult to explain. Therefore, it's reasonable that his evolution into the two-tomo Sharingan, with a sudden and significant increase in his control and mobilization speed of chakra, is understandable. After all, everyone's physique is different, and the direction of enhancement after bloodline transformation will always differ. Host, Uchiha Yoru, two-tomo, chakra level, elite chunin, chakra attributes, fire, LV3, lightning, LV4, earth, LV1, swordsmanship, taijutsu, LV4, medical ninjutsu LV4, gold coins. 350,000. Seeing that his attributes hadn't changed much, except for the addition of earth attribute, he knew this was a bonus from his enhanced physique. After all, in the original work, the Third Hokage's attributes were fire, lightning, and earth. Uchiha Yoru smiled with satisfaction. With a physique similar to the Third Hokage's, he would have a Kage-level potential even without the Sharingan in the future. Right now, it seems only the Sharingan has evolved, but only he truly understands the changes in his own body. Kakashi's hand seal speed during Shippuden was dazzling, but according to the records, he and Itachi were both at the top of the seal level. His overall strength was already comparable to a special Jonin, and he wouldn't arouse suspicion, especially from his teacher Orochimaru. More importantly, he could learn some advanced ninjutsu taught by Orochimaru with genius-level skill. Orochimaru-sensei, you shouldn't notice any changes in my body for now. After all, the Third Hokage's physical talent requires a long, persistent process. Uchiha Yoru smiled. Even though Orochimaru had defected, with his current physical foundation, he would definitely be among the elite Jonin within 3 years. The Third Hokage's physique combined with Kakashi's talent for chakra control made him a true genius. Orochimaru's return to Konoha seemed to cause little stir, with only news of a fierce battle coming from the front lines. Lord Shinosuke Sarutobi has achieved significant progress in overseeing the borders of Konoha, bringing stability to the region. The Hyuga and Uchiha clans along the border with the Land of Water have also stabilized. Konoha, which experienced turmoil last October due to the Nine-Tails attack, seems to be gradually recovering and returning to its former peaceful state. The difference now is that Konoha is currently home to the Third Hokage, the longest-serving leader in the village, and the legendary Sannin. The presence of the Sannin seems to be fading at an alarming rate. With Tsunade and Jiraiya no longer in the village, few people mention the former Sannin anymore. Instead, the village's current prosperity is filled with stories of the Third Hokage's heroic deeds in stabilizing the turbulent Konoha. Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, has become increasingly reclusive, almost insignificant, while the Third Hokage's reputation grows ever stronger within the village. Especially during this period of turmoil in Konoha, the Third Hokage almost single-handedly turned the tide. Coupled with the underhanded tactics of some high-ranking officials, it seemed that all the credit was attributed to him. Even the students at the Ninja Academy, influenced by this, blindly worshipped the Third Hokage, with some even claiming he was the strongest Hokage of all time. At the Ninja Academy, a Chunin teacher passionately recounted the Third Hokage's achievements, stating, "In less than half a year, the village's turbulent situation since last year's Nine-Tails attack has been brought to a close by the Third Hokage's heroic efforts. The Third Hokage can truly be called the strongest Hokage of all time." The students below listened with fervor and excitement. However, Only the 6-year-old Itachi Uchiha, wearing a black short-sleeved shirt embroidered with the Uchiha clan crest and a fan, began to ponder as he looked at the enthusiastic students and teacher in his class. He had been to the front lines, and even learned from his elder brother Shisui that the commander-in-chief of the front lines, along the borders with the land of lightning and the land of water, was Lord Orochimaru. Shouldn't all the credit belong to Lord Orochimaru? Why has everything changed now? Where is Lord Orochimaru? Why is only the third Hokage left? Even the relatively precocious Itachi Uchiha himself didn't realize that his thoughts were no longer those of someone his age. At this moment, Itachi Uchiha carried a deep sense of doubt within him, a question he needed to explore himself. Perhaps even Yoru Uchiha himself hadn't anticipated these changes. Itachi Uchiha had embarked on a path completely different from his original destiny. Itachi-kun, just then, a weak voice came. Itachi Uchiha couldn't help but turn his head, only to see a delicate-looking, quiet little girl, who seemed hesitant at first, but finally appeared to have made a brave decision. Itachi-kun, now that the front lines are stable, will Lord Yoru be returning? Yoru. Currently, Uchiha Yoru, a disciple of Orochimaru and one of the legendary Sannin, enjoys immense prestige within the Uchiha clan. Naturally, Uchiha Itachi immediately recognized this and nodded gently, saying, "Brother Yoru is back." Hearing this, the little girl smiled. Sunlight streamed into the classroom, revealing a clearly visible fan-shaped clan crest on the back of her short-sleeved shirt. Please support. Chapter 37 Konoha's Political Direction. Konoha. Bright sunlight bathed the village, filling it with a youthful and peaceful atmosphere. Konoha seemed to be thriving, as if trapped in a time of peace. Inside the Hokage's office, observing the current atmosphere of Konoha through a crystal ball, the third Hokage, a pipe dangling from his lips, puffed out swirling smoke, a look of relieved weariness on his face. "Hiruzen, you've been working hard lately." At that moment, Kahoru Uchiha and Hamura Midikato sat beside him in the office, sipping hot tea. Hamura's words caused the third Hokage to sigh softly. Sigh, Orochimaru may have gone astray, but he shouldn't have done this. As his master, he had been accused of stealing all the credit from his student to glorify himself, and even going so far as to sideline his student. This left him feeling somewhat melancholic. Seeing Hiruzen Sarutobi's remorseful expression, Kahoru Uchiha calmly sipped her hot tea and said gently, "Hiruzen, Orochimaru joined Danzo's route. Root is a clandestine organization, just like Ryuma Oburaim, so you don't need to blame yourself. It was Orochimaru's own choice. Orochimaru joined Root after failing to become the fourth Hokage." Hamura Midikato also noticed Hiruzen's melancholy and hesitation. He sighed softly and shook his head, saying, "Hiruzen, you can't hesitate now. Orochimaru is too dangerous, and he's too close to the Hyuga and Uchiha clans. If Orochimaru becomes Hokage, it might cause another upheaval in Konoha." From a political perspective, the third Hokage's faction has been firmly established over the years. If Orochimaru rises to power, those who previously held power will be the first to be impacted. The Hokage's pie is only so big, and it's already been mostly divided up by the high-ranking members and the Ino Shikacho trio. If Orochimaru were alone, it wouldn't be so bad, but he has his own faction, and they'll inevitably try to take a piece of the pie. Moreover, Hiruzen Sarutobi believes Orochimaru has gone astray, and if he becomes the fifth Hokage, Konoha's political struggles will need to be reshuffled, plunging the newly stabilized village back into turmoil. At this moment, Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced deeply at his two old friends. Everyone has their own selfish desires, but the problems Konoha faces are also very serious. Perhaps you're right, Orochimaru isn't Minato after all. In the end, Hiruzen Sarutobi chose silence and compromise, or rather, from the beginning, he chose to stand by and watch as countless people, including his own Sarutobi clan, orchestrated everything. Minato Namake's greatest advantage as the fourth Hokage was that he didn't have his own faction. After taking office, he needed to cultivate his own political allies, and the original Hokage lineage was perfect for this. The older generation retired, and the new generation formed new alliances. How ideal. Orochimaru, however, had his own small faction, which was different. After exhaling a puff of smoke, Hiruzen Sarutobi lowered his Hokage hat slightly and looked at the two men, saying in a deep voice, "This matter ends here. The stability of Konoha is paramount." Was the third Hokage wrong? From his political perspective, no. Konoha couldn't withstand any more turmoil. In fact, the current stable situation was the best. After all, Konoha had just experienced the devastating Third Shinobi World War. The war had even forced Konoha to send students to the battlefield, demonstrating the immense damage it had inflicted. The war had barely ended, and before they could even catch their breath, the Nine-Tails attack resulted in the loss of countless elite ninjas, not to mention the death of the Fourth Hokage, who had only been in office for a year. This is adding insult to injury. Konoha is currently weak and desperately needs rest and recuperation. Choosing Orochimaru to take power means a reshuffling of power within Konoha, igniting political infighting. Orochimaru, obsessed with ninjutsu and even beginning to stray from the right path, is someone Hiruzen Sarutobi absolutely does not want to see Konoha fall into turmoil again. Hiruzen, don't worry, the village only needs 3 to 5 years to recover. The two naturally understood Hiruzen Sarutobi's unspoken meaning. It was also a form of guilt, as Orochimaru was his disciple. Midokado Hamura nodded solemnly. This is a political struggle. After Orochimaru gained his own group of loyal followers, not all of them being descendants of the original Hokage lineage, divisions arose, especially after the Hyuga and Uchiha clans joined Orochimaru, two very powerful clans. Therefore, Orochimaru's biggest challenge in becoming Hokage was facing all the original Hokage families. They had already divided up the spoils, and they absolutely wouldn't allow anyone to snatch it away from them and redistribute it. Hiruzen, Shinosuke will be able to stand on his own in another 3 to 5 years. Kaoru Utatene's words immediately brought a smile to Hamura Midokado's face. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, lowered his head, a complex look in his eyes. Everyone has their own selfish motives. Shinosuke Sarutobi, the third Hokage's son, a former Anbu leader, and now a frontline commander, might lack the strength of the older generation of Kage, and couldn't compare to the Sannin, but he was definitely the strongest of the new generation. Not to mention, the Sarutobi clan represented the interests of the entire Hokage lineage. This wasn't just Kaoru Utatane and Hamura Midokado's personal motives, it was a decision made by the entire Hokage faction. If Shinosuke Sarutobi became Hokage, the first thing he would absolutely not do was harm the interests of everyone present. Konoha would remain as it was. Konoha would still be Konoha, just with a different young man. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, remained silent upon hearing this, his silence signifying acquiescence. Perhaps in his heart, the stability of Konoha was paramount. He had recommended Minato Namokaze for the village's stability, and now he tacitly approved of his son becoming Hokage. From a political perspective, if Shinosuke Sarutobi became the fifth Hokage, Konoha would remain a stable Konoha, the interests of the various clans would remain unchanged, and there would be no turmoil. From a personal perspective, his son becoming Hokage, with two Hokage from one family, naturally brought him comfort as a father. Sarutobi, keep a close eye on the Uchiha. With the front lines stabilizing, I'm afraid the Uchiha might cause trouble. Finally, the topic turned to Konoha's most pressing problem, and Hiruzen Sarutobi frowned, deep in thought. The Anbu have already begun monitoring the Uchiha clan, and at the same time, they've sent people to make contact with the younger generation of Uchiha. The Uchiha need ninjas who can inherit the will of fire. Hiruzen Sarutobi said this with unwavering resolve. Kaoru Utatane and Hamura Midokado immediately smiled and nodded, saying, "We'll do whatever you say, Hiruzen." It must be said that Hiruzen Sarutobi is incredibly shrewd. He'll definitely be monitoring them, and at the same time, he's preparing to recruit several younger Uchiha. From the beginning, his plan was to have his own people within the Uchiha clan. He needs to know whether the Nine-Tails is related to the Uchiha, and he needs to be constantly aware of the Uchiha's movements. After all, controlling the Nine-Tails at its peak is a sword hanging over Konoha's head. Note, the last sentence about following the reader is unrelated and appears to be a separate comment. Chapter 38 Sister-in-Law. Clan Chief. At the root of Konoha, in a dark, secret room, a pair of bright, sinister eyes stared at an intelligence scroll in their hand. After a long silence, a hoarse, disdainful laugh echoed through the room. "How, Sarutobi, you got lucky this time." While Konoha's external threats are gradually stabilizing, the Uchiha clan within the village is a major problem, Shimura Danzo muttered to himself, a ruthless glint flashing in his eyes as he spoke of the Uchiha. He absolutely wouldn't allow such a terrifying and threatening clan to emerge within the village. The Uchiha were too strong. Orochimaru, I hope you understand during this period of silence that the Uchiha and Hyuga cannot become too powerful, Shimura Danzo sneered, his heart filled with dread towards these two powerful clans. The Uchiha and Hyuga were Konoha's two great clans, not only possessing immense power but also being bloodline clans. At equal strength, a bloodline ninja could fight two ninjas of the same level without being defeated. In the original anime and manga, Elder Chiyo of the Sands Village in the Land of Wind solemnly stated, "If you encounter a Sharingan user in a one-on-one fight, flee. If you encounter two, go for their back." Elder Chiyo of the Sands Village was of the same generation as the Third Hokage and had experienced countless battles, so she naturally knew the power of bloodline limit ninjas, especially those from the Uchiha clan, known as the most powerful clan in the ninja world. A single elite Jonin with a Sharingan can kill an ordinary elite Jonin, and can even fight two equally matched elite Jonin. That's terrifying. While Jonin and Chunin are less of a concern, as villages can easily train them, Jonin represent the foundation of every village and are not easily lost. The Uchiha clan's territory, though several times larger than before after being relocated to a remote area, is clearly isolated by the towering ancient forests surrounding it. Inside a seemingly solemn house deep within the clan's territory, the sound of a baby crying could be heard. "Greetings, clan head." "Greetings, clan head's wife." In the living room, Uchiha Yoru respectfully bowed to Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Mikado, who was preparing tea for them. "Yoru-kun, you're too kind." Uchiha Mikado smiled and nodded as she prepared tea, apologetically saying, "I'm sorry, Sasuke is still young and a bit noisy." Mikado, appearing like a typical housewife, further explained the faint sound of a baby crying from inside. Clan head Fugaku, however, smiled. According to the clan's seniority system, Yoru, you should call Mikado's sister-in-law. The usually rigid Fugaku rarely showed such a playful smile. Mikado's beautiful eyes flashed with surprise at this, while Uchiha Yoru smiled. "Sister-in-law, clan head." Fugaku Uchiha's words were clearly an attempt to win him over, and he certainly wouldn't refuse such a gesture. Moreover, these words stirred a surge of excitement within Uchiha Yoru. Finally, he had finally entered the center of power within the clan. Ninjas playing politics? To participate in politics, just like in his previous life, you needed the strength. The difference was that in this ninja world, the most important element of strength was one's own power. Without the strength of a Jonin, you simply couldn't participate. Uchiha Yoru naturally knew why he received this treatment. One was his two-tomo Sharingan, at only 15 years old. He was already a solid elite Chunin, and with the advancement of his bloodline limit, becoming a Jonin in the future was certainly within his grasp. For ordinary ninjas, the process from elite Chunin to Jonin is lengthy. Even becoming a special Jonin requires a long period of training, and some may never even reach that level. Consider Kirina Iyuhi and Anko Materashi. They became Chunin at 13 and 12 respectively, but it took them 12 years of honing their skills before one became a Jonin and the other a special Jonin. For bloodline ninjas, the awakening or advancement of their bloodline at this crucial moment brings a comprehensive improvement. That's the difference. While others need over a decade of training, the awakening or advancement of the Sharingan in the Uchiha clan shortens that time. Hell, Yoru's talent is quite good. I hope Itachi will trouble Yoru-kun a lot in the future. Fugaku Uchiha's true intentions were finally revealed beneath his smile. The family tree says their elder brother and sister-in-law? That's several generations back. Why not just say their ancestors? However, upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoru smiled modestly. How could I dare to say anything if the clan leader doesn't mind? Looking at the humble and smooth-talking young man before him, Uchiha Fugaku smiled with satisfaction and nodded approvingly. No wonder he was trusted by Orochimaru. The two had essentially formed a mutually beneficial exchange. Yoru's address as sister-in-law signified his membership in the clan leader's faction, giving him a powerful backer within the family. The price of this exchange was the ability to take on disciples, similar to the relationships between Hiruzen Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Minato Namikaze. Now that Yoru was Orochimaru's disciple, what if Itachi Uchiha became Yoru's student? Well, since Itachi couldn't become Orochimaru's student, becoming a grand disciple wouldn't be bad either. This way, they would both have another layer of Hokage lineage. At this moment, Uchiha Fugaku smiled with satisfaction at the young man's smooth-talking nature, and Yoru secretly rejoiced. It was truly a case of getting a pillow when you're sleepy. He had been worried that after Orochimaru's defection, his identity, while not being investigated, would definitely be implicated. But with Uchiha Itachi, things were different. He didn't care about Konoha, but his power within the Uchiha clan couldn't be affected in the slightest. With Uchiha Itachi as his disciple, He naturally had to be associated with Orochimaru's lineage. Immediately, both the big and small foxes smiled, each thinking they had gained an advantage. One was using her power to pave the way for her son, and the other was using her prophetic intuition to pave the way for herself. I'll go call Itachi over. Hearing this, the gentle Uchiha Mikado smiled and nodded to the two of them. Watching Uchiha Mikado turn and leave, Uchiha Yoru's eyes flashed with a sharp light as he lowered his head with a smile. Uchiha Mikado, daughter of Elder Setsuna, may appear as a gentle housewife, but remember, Elder Setsuna was a hawk. And this woman is no ordinary person. Before marriage and childbirth, she was an elite ninja in her clan. A Junin with 3 Tomo rank. Please continue reading and show your support. Chapter 39 Itachi pays respects to teacher Yoru. With a creak, the wooden sliding door opened, and 6-year-old Uchiha Itachi respectfully stepped into the living room. Despite his young age, he already exuded a composed demeanor. The moment Itachi entered, Fugaku Uchiha's smile gained a touch of authority. He glanced at his son, then pointed at Uchiha Yoru and solemnly declared, "Itachi, from this day forward, you will become Yoru-kun's disciple." Itachi showed a hint of surprise, while Yoru smiled, inwardly exclaiming, "Heaven is on my side. I'm sure I can turn this traitor around, Yoru-sensei." Itachi indeed remained obedient, bowing deeply to his father. Seeing this, Uchiha Fugaku smiled. Itachi, in a way, Yoru-kun is my cousin, your uncle, so you're not at a disadvantage at all to have him as your teacher. Yoru smiled inwardly at this. Sure enough, those who play politics have to be ruthless. Now he's even a relative. But looking at it from his position, it's quite comfortable. Clan leader, you're too kind. I will definitely do my best to teach Itachi. By the way, I'll find an opportunity to discuss this with Orochimaru-sensei. Perhaps Itachi is also suitable as a summoning beast for Raichi Cave. As Yoru said this, Uchiha Fugaku smiled heartily. This scene surprised the young Uchiha Itachi. His usually stern father was acting like this today. Uchiha Itachi was indeed very mature, but he was a complete novice when it came to politics. Otherwise, how could he have become a traitor in the original story? Fugaku Uchiha's beaming smile was a clear indication that his successor was secure. If his son could secure a summoning beast from Raichi Cave, he would essentially be part of the Hokage lineage. Fugaku was currently in his prime, and as his son grew up, he could easily succeed him as clan head. Uchiha Yoru, on the other hand, could become a clan elder. While being Orochimaru's apprentice wasn't enough, wouldn't being the 5th Hokage's apprentice suffice? Fugaku's smile stemmed from this. Orochimaru would become the 5th Hokage sooner or later, and giving Uchiha Yoru an elder position was sufficient, a political investment. As for the recent suppression of Orochimaru by the village, Fugaku was well aware of it, but he mostly just smiled disdainfully. Sarutobi Shinosuke? Even if he received frontline battle merits, so what? The prestige of the Sannin couldn't be so easily erased, let alone their strength. Seeing the clan leader's beaming face, Uchiha Yoru also smiled and nodded, saying, "If there's nothing else, clan leader, I'll go and get to know Itachi." Uchiha Fugaku smiled upon seeing this and nodded, saying, "Yoru, we're family. You can call me big brother when there are no outsiders." Although his words were casual, Uchiha Yoru knew the underlying meaning. He took it with a grain of salt, as taking it too seriously would be rude. He immediately feigned a grateful smile and nodded, saying, "Clan leader, I will definitely teach Itachi well. However, Orochimaru-sensei is quite busy with his research lately, and I'm afraid I won't be able to teach Itachi properly. My suggestion is to have Shisui also teach Itachi. After all, Itachi's talent shouldn't be wasted." Hearing this, Uchiha Fugaku nodded with satisfaction. "Alright, I'll leave Itachi in Yoru's care from now on." Uchiha Shisui is the most talented member of the clan in recent years, his talent rivaling that of the genius ninja Hatake Kakashi. Not to mention that he had now awakened the 3-tomo Sharingan. In his eyes, Kakashi had already been surpassed by Shisui. This was the difference between a bloodline ninja and an ordinary ninja. Hatake Kakashi was truly the epitome of genius in this era. He graduated at 5, became a Chunin at 6, and a Jonin at 12, a life practically blessed with superhuman abilities. But his ordinary bloodline limited his potential, not to mention that his single Sharingan eye also held him back. In the spacious courtyard, there was a sizable artificial lake. Uchiha Yoru, Uchiha Shisui, and 6-year-old Uchiha Itachi sat to one side. "Shisui, the task of teaching Itachi from now on is entrusted to you." Uchiha Yoru feigned an apologetic expression, but Shisui smiled nonchalantly. Don't worry, Yoru-ni, I will definitely teach Itachi well. In Shisui's heart, teaching Itachi wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing for the Uchiha right now was to maintain a close relationship with Orochimaru. 6-year-old Itachi, though precocious, was still somewhat bewildered by their conversation, but the intelligent boy had already learned to memorize everything first and then slowly process and organize it later. By the way, what has Itachi been learning at school lately? Having become quite familiar with Itachi, Shisui smiled casually, as if asking a child, while the more attentive Itachi respectfully began to recount his schoolwork. Besides explaining the traps, disguises, and the 3-body techniques, the teacher has recently been frequently talking about the will of fire, especially saying that the Third Hokage is the strongest Hokage of all time. After watching Itachi's solemn report, especially when he said the last sentence about the Third Hokage being the strongest Hokage, Shisui's face showed an unusual, strange expression. Uchiha Yoru, standing beside him, smiled and nodded, saying, "It's not entirely wrong. After all, the Third Hokage is indeed the longest-serving Hokage in Konoha's history, so that makes him arguably the strongest Hokage." Itachi, who had just been to the front lines, seemed to have learned something from his experience and looked at the two with a puzzled expression. "Yoru-sensei, Shisui, can you explain what the will of fire is?" Shisui was stunned upon hearing this. The will of fire? But seeing Itachi's confused look, just as he was about to speak, Yoru burst into laughter. Under the suspicious gazes of the two, Uchiha Yoru smiled and shook his head, saying, "Itachi, remember to ask who said that before you ask a question." At this moment, Shisui was also stunned. Who coined the term will of fire? Looking at the two, Uchiha Yoru sneered inwardly. It seemed the Ninja Academy was already eager to brainwash its students, making them forget the heroes of the battlefield and glorify heroes in Sarutobi, the Third Hokage. If he didn't know the future, his deductions based on comparing the future and the present situation would be almost entirely accurate. He even had to sigh. Truly, he's a politician. He started plotting early on. From the beginning, Orochimaru was destined to fail. The first condition for becoming Hokage was, without the strength to overpower the village, don't even dream of challenging power. Instead, learn to integrate and let those powers push you to the top. Clearly, Orochimaru's political skills were good, but he went astray. However, it was understandable. With Orochimaru's pride, how could he allow the will of others to sway him? Thanks to Reader Kegel for the 100 Kidian coins donation, and thanks to all the brothers for their support. Chapter 40 Will of Fire equals Uchiha. Inside the Uchiha clan's courtyard, Uchiha Yoru, with an air of sacred reverence, asked, "Itachi, do you know the origin of the name Konoha? And why is this place called the Land of Fire? And why is the cage of the Land of Fire called the Hokage?" These words left Uchiha Itachi looking bewildered. Not only him, but even Shisui beside him seemed suspicious. It seemed he wasn't entirely sure either. Seeing this, a barely perceptible cunning flashed in the depths of Uchiha Yoru's eyes, but his face wore a fanatical and resolute expression. The first Hokage's wood release established a kingdom, which is why the village is called Konoha, Hidden Leaf Village. And the Uchiha ancestors, who were on par with the first Hokage, the Senju and Uchiha clans, together transformed the chaotic warring states period into the present-day Five Great Nations era. At this point, Itachi Uchiha was clearly unaware of this, while Shisui Uchiha's expression changed drastically upon hearing it, and he exclaimed in shock, "Brother Yoru, this is taboo." However, seeing Shisui's changed expression, Yoru Uchiha shook his head and gave Shisui a deep, meaningful look. "Shisui, our ancestors may have made mistakes, but what about their achievements? Achievements cannot be concealed, can they? Are you going to deny the Uchiha's past?" In the chaotic warring states period, the average lifespan of ninjas and commoners was only around 30 years old, while ninja clans went to war at the age of 5 or 6. But in the present Five Great Nations era, the age at which ninjas go to war in peacetime is around 10 years old, and the average lifespan of ninjas and commoners has increased to over 50 years old. This is the achievement of the Senju and Uchiha clans in creating this era. When Uchiha Yoru solemnly mentioned this matter, and spoke from an objective perspective, Uchiha Shisui, though somewhat unnatural on the surface, had to admit the facts after hearing the words. Meanwhile, Uchiha Itachi, standing to the side, seemed to have opened up a new world, revealing a glimmer of hope. The Senju and Uchiha clans, who ushered in the era of the Five Great Nations, joined forces to create the present-day Konoha, the Land of Fire. It is because of the Senju's wood release that it is called Konoha, hidden leaf. Similarly, the title of Hokage of the Land of Fire originates from the Uchiha clan's fire release. Uchiha Yoru, his face beaming with pride, solemnly patted Itachi's shoulder, saying, "The true will of fire is the Uchiha's fire release igniting the Senju's wood release tree." The leaves danced in the air, burning. This is the origin of the will of fire. Where the leaves dance, the fire will continue to burn. The firelight will continue to illuminate the village and allow new leaves to sprout. Uchiha Yoru murmured these words to himself, immediately bringing a glimmer of hope to Itachi and Shisui standing nearby. This is the will of fire. It means that beneath the Senju's swirling leaves, the Uchiha's flames will never cease. The Uchiha's fire release will become the light protecting Konoha, while the Senju's will protect a new future that will sprout anew. Uchiha Yoru exuded a sacred aura, as if transforming into a beacon in the darkness, guiding the two people mired in gloom. These weren't just empty words. Konoha was originally established by the Senju and Uchiha clans joining hands and gathering together a host of smaller clans. Otherwise, with the first Hokage's wood release and the second Hokage's water release, calling him Hokage would be utter nonsense. As expected, the village's cage wasn't called the wood cage, nor the water cage, nor the forbidden technique cage, but the Hokage. At this moment, young Uchiha Itachi seemed to have a new perspective, and his face lit up with excitement. He nodded solemnly and said, "Master Yoru, Itachi understands. The village that the Senju and Uchiha clans protect together is the true will of fire." Seeing Itachi's expression as if he had found his purpose in life, Shisui, standing to the side, was somewhat taken aback, as if something was amiss. But upon further reflection, he realized that Yoru-sensei was right. Wasn't the Uchiha's mission to protect Konoha? Looking at the two, Uchiha Yoru smiled and nodded, saying, "Back then, the Senju and Uchiha joined forces to create Konoha, becoming the undisputed overlords of this land. Subsequently, countless small clans came to join them, including the Nara, Akimichi, Yamanaka, Sarutobi, and Shimura clans. The Senju and Uchiha also took on the responsibility of protecting the weak. This is the Uchiha's past achievement, an indelible contribution to the entire ninja world. Now, let's talk about the consequences." As he said this, Uchiha Yoru's previously sacred gaze suddenly dimmed, as if his unwavering belief had faltered. Shisui clearly knew what was about to be said and hesitated to speak, but then, remembering that Itachi, as the son of the clan head, would inevitably know these things, he remained silent. With the establishment of Konoha in the Land of Fire, it became the undisputed strongest hegemon on this land. This led other forces, unwilling to be annexed, to establish other large and small countries, which is the origin of the current situation in the ninja world. After the Warring States period, the current ninja world era emerged. However, at this time, the Senju and Uchiha clans, who founded the Land of Fire, had a difference in ideology. A difference? At this moment, Itachi Uchiha showed a curious look, while Shisui, standing beside him, recalled the history he had read in his clan, and his heart sank to a low point. Looking at the two, Uchiha Yoru sighed with a touch of melancholy. The Senju believed that peace was hard-won and didn't want to go to war with other countries. For the sake of peace, and more importantly, to balance the power of the major ninja villages, they distributed the tailed beasts among the 5 great nations. The Uchiha, however, didn't think so. They believed that the current peace was only temporary, and that lasting peace required bloodshed. They intended to join forces with the Senju to unify the ninja world, believing that temporary pain would bring lasting peace. This is the origin of their disagreement. Later, Uchiha Yoru, from an observer's perspective, slowly recounted the conflict between the Senju and Uchiha, including the reasons why the Uchiha eventually became part of the police force. After Uchiha Yoru finished speaking, Shisui frowned in deep thought. The records he had read in Yoru's account were almost entirely accurate. However, having read this history alone, he had always believed that his clan was at fault, leading to the conflict between his clan and the village. Therefore, he had always considered it a taboo. But today, as an observer, listening to someone else's story seemed to open up a different world for him. Shisui wasn't pondering the origins of the conflict between his clan and the village. He knew all that, but rather the events leading up to it. Were the Uchiha wrong? Then were the Senju right? Peace ended with the Senju's demise, and war began. The tailed beasts, meant to balance the 5 great nations, became war machines. World War I. World War II. And the brutal World War II. How long had it all been? It seemed the Senju weren't right either. Then were the Uchiha right? It seemed not. At this moment, Shisui was filled with confusion. Where was peace headed? The Uchiha's path to war was wrong, yet the Senju ultimately caused the war as well. Just as Shisui was lost in thought, young Itachi, despite his precocious wisdom, was only 6 years old. Upon learning the true will of fire, a proud glint appeared on his face. Teacher Yoru, Itachi understands. The will of fire is the Uchiha and Senju protecting countless weak people. In Itachi's young, confused mind, a concept that would make him proud for life instantly took hold. The Uchiha had protected the village. This scene brought a smile to Uchiha Yoru's face. He wasn't lying, it was originally the Senju and Uchiha who protected Konoha. But what if Itachi knew that those he protected wanted to overthrow them? From the original story, it's clear that in Itachi's mind, the Hokage was a sacred being protecting the village, while the Uchiha had become a destabilizing force. Now he wanted to reverse that. The Uchiha were the protectors of Konoha, but now countless villagers wanted to overthrow and destroy those who had once protected him. What would he do then? Yoro-sensei, regarding the village history you mentioned, if there had only been one Konoha, the land of fire, would there have been no war? Nearly 6 years old, Uchiha Itachi voiced his doubts. Being only 6, he was naturally very interested in the village's history after learning the true will of fire, and he was particularly puzzled by the past disagreements between the Uchiha and Senju. Practice had proven that the Senju's peace ideals had failed, or at least only lasted a short time. The innocent question posed by 6-year-old Itachi Uchiha unexpectedly opened a new direction for the bewildered Shisui. Seeing Shisui's constantly changing expression and Itachi's innocent, yearning question, Uchiha Yoru shook his head with a wry smile, saying, Itachi, you're too young. I can't give you an answer to this question, and nobody in the ninja world can. This answer has never existed, so there's no right or wrong. Haha, you're only 6. Why think so much? Your primary goal right now is to graduate from the Ninja Academy, become the pride of your clan, and lead the Uchiha to continue protecting Konoha. That's your life goal. Don't overthink it. Seemingly unable to find the correct answer, Uchiha Yoru burst into laughter, ruffling Itachi's young head and completely forgetting about all the questions. But in young Itachi's heart, a seed of innocent doubt had already taken root. Even now, at 6 years old, Itachi was already fantasizing, if the ninja world only consisted of the land of fire and Konoha, wouldn't there be no war on the borders? Meanwhile, Uchiha Shisui looked at his idol, Yoru, with a complex expression. Under the Senju's peace ideals, the ninja world experienced 3 major wars in just a few decades. What if the Uchiha's ideals were implemented? Faced with Shisui's question, Uchiha Yoru feigned surprise, then chuckled, Shisui, don't overthink it. This is history. I'm just telling Itachi the truth. It's a responsibility he, as the son of the clan head, must bear. Although he didn't say anything, Shisui lowered his head, his mind racing with countless thoughts. The first Hokage's peace ideal seemed to have failed to bring peace. Instead, they transformed the past conflicts between clans into the current conflicts between nations. The biggest difference seemed to be that countless small conflicts had escalated into a massive war. What difference was there between the countless clans in Konoha and the major nations of the ninja world today? They were merely smaller versions. Uchiha Shisui saw much more, which was why he was even more alarmed. The various clans in the village ostracizing the Uchiha clan were probably not just because of their fear of the Nine Tails. It seemed there was also some self-interest involved. The interests of the Uchiha clan. Thinking of this, Shisui broke out in a cold sweat. The Nine Tails' suspicion was merely a signal, allowing countless clans to see an opportunity to tear a piece of their wealth from the Uchiha. Thank you, Yoru-sensei. Itachi understands the will of fire now. At this moment, the 6-year-old Itachi seemed to have found a glimmer of hope in his confused heart, and a childlike but determined smile appeared on his face. Seeing the smile on Itachi's innocent face, Yoru also showed a look of satisfaction and praised him. Itachi, you're very good. Try to graduate as soon as possible. Hearing this, Itachi nodded firmly. Don't worry, Yoru-sensei, I will definitely work hard. Although Itachi was precocious now, he was still a 6-year-old child. Yoru narrowed his eyes and saw Shisui beside him, who seemed to have frightened himself to the point of turning pale. He immediately made a plan. Shisui? Shisui, what are you staring at? Remember to teach Itachi more in the future. Shisui, who only reacted after being patted on the shoulder, was stunned for a moment. Then, under Uchiha Yoru's admonition, he forced a smile and nodded, saying, Don't worry, Yoruni, I will definitely teach Itachi well. Clearly, the more mature Shisui had now gone astray. No. It should be said that his thoughts had entered the right track. He was thinking too much. However, this was something Uchiha Yoru was happy to see. He chuckled and patted the other's shoulder. Shisui, you can't be like this. You're not even as good as Itachi. Look, Itachi knows that fire represents the Uchiha, and the will of fire is the Uchiha. Beneath the casual, teasing tone, the three Uchiha present harbored three distinct thoughts. Uchiha Yoru pondered silently, subtly laying the groundwork for future interactions. He absolutely couldn't relax his surveillance of Itachi, or his cheap apprentice would truly benefit someone else. As for Shisui, it wasn't the same. Shisui's thinking was mature, and as seen in the anime, while he possessed immense strength, he tended to rely on others for emotional support. In the anime, Shisui placed his emotional dependence on the Hokage lineage, which ultimately led to his collapse and suicide as an escape from reality. In short, he possessed immense power, but preferred to rely on others for the future of his clan rather than change things through his own strength. At this moment, Shisui forced a smile, but inwardly he was shocked. Now, he could only hope that Orochimaru would quickly become the fifth Hokage, at which point the Uchiha would have a chance. Meanwhile, the youngest member, Uchiha Itachi, was deep in thought. So the will of fire was proposed by the Uchiha clan? Doesn't that prove the Uchiha clan is equivalent to the will of fire? A smile immediately appeared on his face upon realizing this, but a question lingered in his mind. That was, who was stronger, the third Hokage, the ancestor who pacified the chaotic world, or the first Hokage, as the school teacher had recently discussed? Please continue reading and show your support. Chapter 41 Carrying out Orochimaru's clandestine mission for Root. Konoha. The armed law enforcement system of Konoha village in the Land of Fire consists of 5 departments from the Hokage's lineage: the Anbu, Root, Intelligence Department, Medical Department, and Barrier Department, along with a police department, collectively known as the 6 departments of Konoha. Ordinary ninjas are merely ordered to carry out missions. During wartime, they form ninja legions. In reality, they have no law enforcement authority within the village, even Junin, unless they encounter spies or similar situations. The Anbu and Root handle classified missions and the village's clandestine activities. Currently, the head of the Anbu is the third Hokage's eldest daughter-in-law. The information suggests that the third Hokage's eldest son and daughter-in-law are lead Jonin of the Anbu, and the couple were Yosen Sarutobi's right-hand men. The head of Root is none other than the cunning Danzo Hashimura. The Intelligence Department, as its name suggests, is responsible for intelligence and has 3 sub-departments: the Interrogation Team, the Torture Team, and the Cipher Team. The current head of the Intelligence Department is Yamanaka Inoichi. The Medical Department, founded by Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin, though she is no longer in the village, is arguably the strongest in the entire ninja world in this regard. The Barrier Department, a mysterious and somewhat cold department, primarily operates within the village. However, it is also extremely dangerous, as they bear the responsibility of sealing the tail beasts and defending the entire village. These are the 5 major departments of the Hokage's faction in Konoha. The 6th department is the Uchiha Police Department. Established during the second Hokage's administration, the police department can be seen as the formalization of the Uchiha clan's private power, with the Uchiha's voice dominating the department. Furthermore, the police department wields terrifying power, possessing independent law enforcement authority, meaning they can act without reporting to the Hokage. As its name suggests, the police department, though brightly lit, exudes a repressive atmosphere, at least to outsiders. The police department was equipped with interrogation, intelligence, logistics, and weaponry units, a complete system, practically a miniature political system. Seeing this, Uchiha Yoru muttered to himself, "This is almost like a country with 2 systems. It shows the depth of the Uchiha clan, the number 1 ninja family." Brother Yoru, here's the information you requested. Shisui, the most outstanding genius of the Uchiha clan, became a Jonin at only 13. Now, at 14, with his 3-tomo Sharingan, he was already comparable to an ordinary elite Jonin, holding a high position within the police department. Looking at the intelligence in his hand, Uchiha Yoru carefully checked it before letting out a sigh of relief. He carefully placed the documents aside, then looked up to see Shisui's clearly somewhat downcast expression. "Shisui, you're 14 this year, right?" Seeing Yoru's wistful expression as he asked, Shisui was somewhat stunned, even a little confused, before nodding. "Yes, Yoru. At that moment, Yoru suddenly sighed softly and shook his head, saying, Shisui, your strength is undeniable. No one would think you're inferior to the genius Kakashi, but you're still too young. Perhaps keeping you constantly exposed to darkness will harm you. Hearing this, Shisui immediately felt a pang of guilt. Yoru was only a year older than him, yet hadn't he been exposed to more darkness? Now, he even shouldered the responsibility of being the bridge between the Uchiha clan and the Hokage. Thinking of this, Shisui's melancholy and resentment vanished without a trace. Wasn't Yoru under more pressure than him? Hadn't he been exposed to more darkness? Then what right did he have to run away? Brother Knight, don't worry, Shisui will definitely not let you down. Shisui's face was filled with determination, which made Uchiha Knight shake his head with a smile, saying, Shisui, you're wrong. We're all doing this for the clan, for Konoha. Shisui suddenly pushed the documents forward, and upon seeing the information, especially the names listed, his brow furrowed slightly. Uchiha Knight, sitting at the table, lowered his head slightly, his eyes shadowed, seemingly showing a hint of despondency. Umino Itsuki, looking at the documents in his hand, especially the information about his only remaining family member, his nephew Umino Aruka, and the fact that his parents had perished in the Nine Tails attack, Shisui's hand trembled involuntarily. Brother Knight, what did Umino Itsuki do? Shisui's voice was low and hoarse. This was just an ordinary Chunin family. The entire family of ordinary Chunin had almost all perished in the Nine Tails attack, leaving only his nephew still at the Ninja Academy. He himself was only a Chunin. Seemingly sensing Shisui's reluctance, Uchiha Yoru took a deep breath. The moment he opened his eyes, the two tomo and his blood-red Sharingan spun, exuding an air of suppressed unease. Shisui. A ninja's duty is to carry out missions. The rest is none of your business. However, upon hearing this, Shisui couldn't help but curl his lips into a self-deprecating smile. Another mission for Root that they can't handle. A tense atmosphere filled the office. Finally, Yoru spoke up, shaking his head at Shisui's dejected mood. Shisui, this is all for Konoha. Make sure Umino Itsuki, who was arrested by the police a few days ago, is dealt with cleanly. Transfer his shops to Saratobi Hidayuki's name. Remember not to leave Umino Aruka too much wealth. The implication was that leaving too much wealth would harm the soon-to-graduate Umino Aruka. Shisui had clearly done this before, but each time it was psychological torture for him. Brother Knight, how much longer are we going to do this? This time, Shisui finally couldn't hold back any longer. In the less than 3 months since returning to Konoha, he had already carried out far too many shady missions. Brother Knight, do you know what people in the village are saying about our Uchiha clan lately? Since they returned to Konoha with Orochimaru, Orochimaru had practically been sidelined. However, as a member of Root, he still had many missions to carry out. Naturally, a large portion of these Root missions that Orochimaru handled were taken over by the Uchiha and Hyuga clans. After all, Orochimaru's status was significant. Even if he were sidelined, he couldn't just send people on missions arbitrarily. Moreover, his position in Root was essentially second in command, so he naturally had to be responsible for some shady tasks. These missions were taken over by Orochimaru's ninja clans, and with Knight in the Uchiha clan, they naturally received the lion's share. But clearly, these shady characters were somewhat oppressive. Especially as they constantly challenged and shattered Shisui's worldview. Please support. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Stillwater. For the village. Inside an unassuming office in the police department. Brother Yoru, everyone in the village is saying that the Uchiha clan, relying on their powerful lineage, arrests and punishes every common ninja who makes a mistake, but turns a blind eye to the village's powerful clans. The police department has become corrupt. Shisui clearly felt aggrieved, while Yoru feigned a worried expression, which quickly hardened into a resolute one. Shisui, you must understand, this is all for the sake of Konoha's stability. Hearing this, Shisui's young face showed even more frustration, and he couldn't help but whisper, Brother Yoru, how come so many of Root's shady missions are shady missions? After a long pause, Shisui still couldn't finish his sentence, while Yoru sighed softly. Shisui, you must understand. The village is going through a difficult time right now. and special measures are needed for special times. These shady missions almost always involve risking everything. So as for wrongful convictions? Well, I can only apologize. The mission was issued by Root, and he doesn't know if it's right or wrong. Where there's light, there's darkness. Even if the Third Hokage was selfless, where would the light come from without darkness? The Sarutobi clan's formation of an army later in the anime, was it all just hype? Without years of accumulated experience, there wouldn't have been the Sarutobi army. Shisui, the Third Hokage's Sarutobi clan needs you now, so you just need to understand and keep some things to yourself. The Konoha pie is only so big. If the Sarutobi clan wants to grow, they need to threaten others' interests. With Uchiha Yoru involved, the nature of some missions naturally changes, such as the one they need to secretly deal with right now. Umino Itsuki. Umino Itsuki, a chunin, was captured by the Land of Grass for half a month during a mission and is suspected of leaking information and becoming a traitor. The word suspected is enough, especially since he's just an ordinary chunin. Better to kill 1,000 innocent people than let one guilty person go free. Isn't that very Root's style? This is Root's mission, but in Yoru's hands, its nature has changed slightly. That is, Umino Itsuki owned 3 shops. After all, the Nine-Tails family was almost all dead, so naturally, they inherited a considerable amount. Umino Itsuki was suspected of being eliminated, so these assets needed to be transferred. However, Yoru didn't want to fund the enemy, Root, so he came up with this plan. Shisui, secretly give these 3 shops to Sarutobi Hayayuki. On the surface, the police department will cover it up by saying that Umino Itsuki had already betrayed them while he was a prisoner, and his assets will be confiscated, and the proceeds will be given to his nephew, Umino Iruka, for 200,000 yen. The rest will be confiscated. Root's research needs a lot of funding. As he said this, Uchiha Yoru's eyes revealed a deep glint, and he felt no remorse for abusing his power for personal gain. Anyway, if he didn't do this, his clan would be finished in the future anyway. He wanted to take advantage of the current opportunity to make money. Make money. Make money. Shisui naturally understood what he meant, but it was precisely because he understood that he showed a bitter smile. The so-called Root research funding was just Orochimaru's salmon-eating funds. Remember to make it clear, after these 3 shops are given to Sarutobi Hayayuki, half of the future income from the shops will belong to the Uchiha clan. Abusing power for personal gain naturally requires silencing everyone. Giving them to the Sarutobi clan ninjas means this sordid affair will inevitably involve others, and the Sarutobi clan, the Hokage's ally, is perfect for this. Similarly, by using Root as a front, I'll complete the mission for you, and I'll give the Sarutobi clan the lion's share of the profits. Isn't that a roundabout way of showing goodwill? In the end, the Uchiha clan only received half of the shop income. It's fair to say that Root just talked the talk, while the Sarutobi clan sat at home, and Root's mission was completed, while the Sarutobi clan's money fell from the sky. Meanwhile, the Uchiha clan did the dirty work and rightfully received their reward. Of the 3 parties, only the Uchiha did the actual work. What more could you want? Sarutobi Hazuki was the squad leader on a mission in the Land of Grass. The stark reality of the situation caught Shisui's eye. The squad leader had returned alive, while his teammates were either dead or captured, including Umino Itsuki. Seeing this, Shisui was gripped by deep suspicion. Was this suspected betrayal a way for Sarutobi Hazuki to erase this stain on his ninja career? Seemingly sensing Shisui's doubts, Uchiha Yoru lowered his voice and said solemnly, "Shisui, ninjas are weapons, they don't need emotions. That's what the Ninja Academy taught us. Yet, ninjas also need emotions. I don't know right from wrong, and no one has told us, but all I know about what we're doing now. Even if we Uchiha didn't do it, other ninjas would. So, for the Uchiha, for Konoha, for Konoha." What a proud statement he once made, yet the unwavering belief in Shisui's heart, for witnessing so much darkness, began to waver. Was all of this truly for Konoha? Why is it that the Uchiha do the dirty work, the Root are ruthless and merciless, while Sarutobi, who does nothing and seems oblivious, is the ultimate beneficiary? Inside the dimly lit cell, thanks to the barrier, not a sound could be heard from the outside, but from within came a series of pitiful wails. "Haha, Uchiha bastards, I knew it. I was just drunk and disturbed the peace. How did this happen? So you're all in cahoots with Sarutobi Hitsuki." At this moment, a police officer's eyes gleamed coldly as he continued to inflict torture, saying in a deep voice, "Listen to me. If you personally write this letter of repentance and are willing to hand over these 3 shops to Sarutobi Hitsuki as compensation, I'll give you a quick death, pa. At this moment, Umino Itsuki revealed a ferocious smile, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Just as the torture was about to continue, the cell door opened, and the light made Umino squint uncomfortably. The Uchiha ninja beside him respectfully rose. Captain Shisui. It was naturally Uchiha Shisui who entered. With a wave of his hand, the ninja in the cell understood, nodded slightly, and turned to leave, the cell door closing again. At this moment, Umino looked up, his swollen eyes fixed on the Uchiha ninja before him, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. Yo, isn't this the Uchiha genius ninja Shisui? How come even geniuses have fallen? Becoming Sarutobi Hidayu's lackey, Shisui's calm face remained expressionless, but in an instant, blood-red 3-tomo Sharingan appeared in his eye sockets, and then his expression became blank. Then, in the silent cell, Shisui spoke a sentence, and Umino responded, both leaving their handwriting and fingerprints on a confession. The confession was simple. After being captured in the land of grass, Umino Itsuki couldn't withstand the pressure and chose to reveal the village's secret, leading to the mission's failure. As the captain of the mission, Sarutobi Hidayori was naturally implicated. Overwhelmed with remorse, he offered to give Captain Sarutobi Hidayori 3 shops under his name as compensation. Looking at the confession in his hand, Shisui gave a self-deprecating smile. Then, the cell door opened, and Shisui left the cell, saying, "Let his family see him one last time, please support." Chapter 43 Dirty Political Deals. Konoha. Bright sunlight bathed the earth, and Konoha appeared thriving, as if the night of the Nine-Tails attack last year had long since vanished. Inside a detached 3-story wooden house, Uchiha Yoru looked at the middle-aged Sarutobi Hirozen, whose appearance now exuded a stern air. Uchiha Yoru, this old man doesn't understand the meaning of this. Before him lay the property deed for a shop, and Sarutobi Hirozen's stern expression seemed to reveal an unyielding integrity. Uchiha Yoru, who had come in person, adopted a solemn expression. Umino Itsuki was arrested for causing trouble while drunk and taken to the police department. However, it was precisely because of his drunkenness that he let slip that he had betrayed the village's interests, which was the reason why Jonin Sarutobi Hazuki failed his mission in the land of grass years ago. Umino Itsuki has confessed, but he has a nephew at home. He is very remorseful and guilty, but his nephew, Umino Iruka, is innocent. Therefore, he hopes that former Captain Jonin Sarutobi Hazuki can forgive him. Uchiha Yoru spoke with an air of righteous indignation, as if it were the truth. Shisui, kneeling and bowing behind him, hid his expression, afraid that he would not be able to control himself and let Uchiha Yoruki see his disgust. Sarutobi Hazuki was stunned when he heard this, but with his many years of experience, he hesitated for a long time with a grim expression, and finally, as if he had made up his mind, a glint of light flashed in his eyes. So, is this representing the Uchiha clan or Lord Orochimaru? After all, Uchiha Yoru's identity was not simple. He was not only a member of the Uchiha clan but also Orochimaru's disciple. Similarly, Sarutobi Hidai was a Jonin of the Sarutobi clan. He needed to clearly understand the other party's identity and purpose. Seeing Sarutobi Hidayu's question, Uchiha Yoru revealed a fake smile. Uchiha or Hyuga, aren't we all from the village? His tone seemed to confirm that Orochimaru was the future Hokage, and that the Uchiha and Hyuga were part of the village. These ambiguous words caused Sarutobi Hidayu to fall silent. He understood, the other party was sending a signal of goodwill. As for who they represented, the Uchiha needed to reconcile with the village, and Orochimaru needed to as well. As for the Uchiha and Hyuga, it made no difference, they were both already aligned with Orochimaru. More importantly, no one expected Orochimaru to defect later. Even though he was a Jonin of the Sarutobi clan, already at the center of power and aware of the clan's schemes, he knew one thing, Orochimaru's identity was crucial. They did indeed hope to make Sarutobi Shinisu the 5th Hokage, but compared to Orochimaru, the prestige seemed insignificant. Sigh, I never imagined he was the one who leaked the mission back then. Sarutobi Hidayuki adopted a sorrowful expression, finally shaking his head and sighing. Because of the leaked information, so many people died. Sarutobi Hidayuki seemed lost in memories of the past, while Uchiha Yoru smiled, accepting the offer. Shisui, however, felt a deep disgust for this political transaction. Sarutobi Hidayuki had a stain on his life, the failure of a secret mission in the land of grass, which resulted in the sacrifice of 73 ninja. The exact reason for the mission's failure remains unknown, but both Sarutobi Higetsu and Shisui knew one thing: Umino Itsuki was merely a scapegoat. This was perhaps a dirty political deal. The Uchiha abused their power, doing Orochimaru's dirty work, and then sending a signal of goodwill to Sarutobi. As for you saying this was the Uchiha's own idea? Do you think anyone would believe that? Besides, doesn't the Uchiha's action represent Orochimaru? I apologize for the spectacle. Emerging from his sorrowful memories, Sarutobi Higetsu gave a bitter smile, seemingly genuinely concerned, his hand already reaching for the property deeds of the three shops. In Shisui's eyes, the other party was clearly engaged in some dirty deal, yet not only did he remain unfazed, but he also feigned compassion, sighing, "Consider these compensations for the 73 ninjas who sacrificed themselves in the Grass Country mission." Whether they would actually compensate the descendants of these fallen ninjas was unknown, but for now, it was clear that the three shops had fallen into the other party's hands. At this moment, Sarutobi Hidayori felt a pang of melancholy. The stain on his reputation seemed to have finally been washed away. The two exchanged tea with perfunctory political smiles. Seeing the other's silent, smiling demeanor, Sarutobi Hidayori sighed inwardly. This man was clearly not a simple ninja. No wonder he was Orochimaru's right-hand man. What does Lord Orochimaru mean? Having already received the benefits, he couldn't expect them to give them away for nothing. Under Sarutobi Hidayori's question, Uchiha Yoru shook his head and sighed. Master Orochimaru is devoted to the research and development of ninjutsu. As you know, it's extremely expensive. In short, the business was secured, but it wasn't all for him. It was a cooperative arrangement. Sarutobi Hidayori fell silent after hearing this. His clan wanted another Hokage from the Sarutobi family, but the Uchiha's sincerity was evident. Moreover, even if the Sarutobi family produced another Hokage, Orochimaru would undoubtedly hold a high position of power. They had given not only money, but more importantly, prestige. It was a complete erasure of a stain on his life. This sincerity moved him. After a long pause, Sarutobi Hidayori glanced at the young man before him, then lowered his gaze, sipped his hot tea, and finally whispered, "I understand, the deal was struck." He was already 40 years old, practically on the decline. He had carefully and painstakingly climbed to this point his entire life, and now the stain on his reputation in the land of grass was right before his eyes. How could he not be tempted? A political deal was struck. The Uchiha would erase his stain, and he would reveal some reliable information. Recently, there's been a lot of talk within the clan about the young clan head becoming Hokage, but some also feel Orochimaru's prestige is too great. A gentle breeze blew by, and after the two finished their last cup of tea, Uchiha Yoru smiled and respectfully nodded, saying, "Please wait a moment, Lord Sarutobi Hidayori. I'll take my leave now, be careful on your way out." This wasn't Sarutobi Hidayori's concern, nor was it just polite talk, it was a subconscious warning not to be discovered. Uchiha Yoru smiled and nodded, saying, "Don't worry, the ninja following me is known as Shisui of the body flicker technique." The meaning was clear. Rest assured, no one noticed their arrival today, and no one will notice their departure. After Uchiha Yoru left with Shisui, Sarutobi Hidayori, who remained silent in the room, wore a complex expression and muttered to himself, "Umino Itsuki, go in peace. I will take good care of your nephew, please support." Chapter 44 Police Division Captain Uchiha Naga Shrine. In the dimly lit chamber, Uchiha Yoru knelt respectfully below, facing clan head Fugaku and Elder Setsuna. After a long while, Fugaku finally revealed a calm expression, but he spoke to Elder Setsuna. "Elder Setsuna, Uchiha Yoru's contributions to the clan are evident to all." Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoru's heart skipped a beat. Here it comes. Finally, he's done so much, the clan is finally going to show some appreciation. Otherwise, if you only expect someone to work without reward, who would do it? Besides, which leader doesn't know the art of using both kindness and severity? The elder beside him merely glanced indifferently at Uchiha Yoru below, nodding slightly and saying, "Indeed, you've done well, especially becoming Orochimaru's disciple." At this point, the elder suddenly chuckled hoarsely, giving Uchiha Yoru a meaningful look before shaking his head at Fugaku beside him, saying, "My health is declining day by day, I'll need someone to take over in the future." Fugaku nodded firmly. Uchiha Yoru has made great contributions this time. The 7th Division of the Police Department is currently vacant. The Police Department This was a powerful department, practically equivalent to Konoha's police station, with each division governing a section of Konoha. Uchiha Yoru and Fugaku were like the chief of police, and the division leaders were like the section chiefs. Hearing this, Uchiha Yoru lowered his head even further, his heart pounding. Even though he had the title of Orochimaru's disciple, he was still, in the end, just an ordinary ninja. It's like this: ordinary people in the ninja world are just civilians, and ninjas are like public officials wielding power, but ultimately they're still soldiers. Even the stronger Jonin are just so-called kings of soldiers. They seem famous, but they lack real power. Take Kakashi Hatake, for example. He's powerful, but if he wants to stay in Konoha, and the 6 departments of Konoha were to arrest or investigate him, he'd be helpless. There are too few departments with real power in the ninja world, or rather, the circle of power is only so big. No matter how powerful a ninja is, unless they reach cage level, they can only compromise under the influence of power. A squad leader in the police department is considered to have truly stepped onto the ladder of power, but this is only within the Uchiha clan's power center. After all, the relationship between the Uchiha and Konoha is still quite delicate. After Fugaku spoke, there was no movement for a long time, and Elder Setsuna even narrowed his eyes as if deep in thought. Seeing this, Uchiha Yoru cursed a bunch of old foxes inwardly, but on his face, he feigned excitement and fear. Although Orochimaru-sensei has been sidelined, he instructed us to try to ease the tensions between Konoha and the other clans. This statement immediately caused a glint in the eyes of Fugaku and Elder Setsuna, as they both simultaneously realized something. Orochimaru-sensei said that the Uchiha clan is currently isolated, and now is the perfect opportunity to establish bridges of communication with the other clans. This situation didn't arise overnight. Upon hearing this, Elder Setsuna couldn't help but laugh and clap his hands, exclaiming, "Excellent! Excellent! Truly worthy of Orochimaru." This situation didn't arise overnight. What he said is absolutely true. Fugaku, standing beside him, also smiled. Others might not understand the meaning, but those who had dealt with power for years could easily grasp it. Although Orochimaru was sidelined, he wouldn't give up, for example, by having his faction begin to cultivate good relations with the other clans of Konoha. After all, the obvious reason Orochimaru was sidelined was that the former Hokage's faction feared that this balance would be broken, affecting their interests. Orochimaru also made his move. This period of seclusion was a good opportunity to rebuild relationships with the various clans. As for the future interests of each clan, there was plenty of time for mediation and compromise. A mutually agreeable outcome was inevitable, or at least the powerful would remain unmoved while the weaker ones would have to concede some benefits. Naturally, Orochimaru wouldn't personally intervene, and the Uchiha clan, now completely on his side, became the scapegoat. Ironically, the Uchiha were happy to see this happen. They were eager to use this opportunity to rebuild trust with the major clans of Konoha. It was practically a golden opportunity delivered to their doorstep. The Uchiha were isolated? Well, they represented Orochimaru now. After all, no one could predict who would become the 5th Hokage, so if they offended him, they would suffer if he became the 5th Hokage. While they tacitly approved of the Sarutobi clan's actions, it didn't mean they wanted to break ties with Orochimaru. Fugaku, I think Shisui is quite good. Shisui has always served in the police department, so it's perfect to transfer him to be Yoru's deputy. He can get up to speed quickly. Also, perhaps the 7th squad should be reorganized. Elder Setsuna smiled broadly. After all, Uchiha Yoru had brought a breakthrough to the clan. Fugaku, standing beside him, also smiled and nodded. All right, from today onwards, Uchiha Yoru is appointed as the 7th squad leader of the police department, independent of the police department and directly under Lord Orochimaru's jurisdiction, responsible for patrolling the western street of the village. A grand gesture. Sending a squad directly from the police department to Orochimaru's hands, that's quite a generous move. First, it shows a firm stance on Orochimaru's side. Second, it allows them to act under Orochimaru's name legitimately. As for this being the Uchiha Police Department, politics needs embellishment before things get too ugly. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoru nodded firmly to the two of them. Thank you for your trust, clan head and elders. For the sake of the Uchiha, the police department has 9 squads, each responsible for patrolling the entire Hidden Leaf village and a certain area around the village's perimeter. Patrolling the village's perimeter is a tedious job, but the squads have more members. Patrolling the village's interior is relatively easier. Uchiha Yoru was filled with excitement. This time, He had truly stepped into the center of power and was beginning to wield some authority. He would have a voice in the clan's council in the future. Looking at the young Uchiha Yoru, Elder Setsuna couldn't help but show his admiration. They hadn't misjudged him. He had secured such great benefits for the clan, truly a hero of the Uchiha clan. Despite his admiration, the cunning Elder Setsuna couldn't help but offer a few words of advice. Clan Chief, I remember that quite a few people were transferred from the 7th Division to the border. It seems we're short-handed. Elder Setsuna gave the clan chief a meaningful look, a casual smile on his face. Fugaku was taken aback, but seeing the elder smile, he immediately understood and nodded solemnly. The 7th Division is short-staffed, and they're also responsible for the West Street. At this moment, both Fugaku and Elder Setsuna looked at him with consideration. Uchiha Yoru cursed inwardly. Damn bureaucracy. This stuff really exists everywhere. Why don't you just say it directly? It'll kill you. If he hadn't been around Orochimaru and been exposed to this stuff, sometimes he really wouldn't understand. Clan Chief, elders, rest assured. Many of the village's elites returned with Orochimaru, and the 7th squad will be restored to its original structure as quickly as possible. The two men smiled, secretly admiring the young man's worldly experience. He was already quite perceptive at such a young age. His meaning was simple. The 7th squad's lack of manpower was clearly a way of offering the squad to Orochimaru as a return gift. A police squad composed of Uchiha members and Orochimaru's elite forces was, in essence, a gesture of goodwill towards Orochimaru. Look how generous the Uchiha are, offering real power like a gift. The purpose was clear. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. Thanks to Dark Star Emperor for the 1000 coin reward, and Kazka for the 200 coin reward. Thank you to all the brothers for your support. Chapter 45 represents Orochimaru. Konoha West Street, Police Department Precinct. In the spacious, brightly lit office, looking out over the large precinct through the bright glass, Uchiha Yoru's eyes flashed with a hint of lust for power. The police department had 9 squads, with a squad responsible for the village having a strength of 200 men, meaning Uchiha Yoru could recruit 200 subordinates. Brother Yoru, Shisui, the squad's vice captain, was clearly in low spirits lately. The experiences of the past few weeks had been too much for him. He had returned to Konoha full of enthusiasm, expecting Orochimaru to become the 5th Hokage, only to be disappointed. Furthermore, his work dealing with Root had exposed him to the village's darkness, a devastating blow. Sitting in his squad leader's seat, Uchiha Yoru looked at Shisui's dejected state with a look of disappointment and frustration. Shisui, look at yourself now. You're so easily discouraged by this? You have the pride of the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Yoru, with a resolute expression, nodded solemnly. Shisui, you must believe in the will of fire, believe in the 3rd Hokage. Everything will be alright when Orochimaru becomes the 5th Hokage. Comforted, Shisui forced a smile. Looking at his guiding light, he couldn't help but think, as expected of Yoruni, always so composed, always so confident. Yoruni, congratulations on becoming a Jonin and taking over the 7th Division of the Police Department. Indeed. Along with Yoru's appointment as the 7th Division captain, the Uchiha clan also submitted an application to the village. After all, they couldn't let a division captain remain at Chunin, could they? As for contributions, his assistance to Orochimaru in handling political affairs on the front lines was enough, embellished by politicians. An ordinary ninja wouldn't even have the chance. Seeing Shisui's forced smile, Uchiha Yoru shook his head and sighed. Shisui, we both have a long way to go. Currently, the branch only has about 30 members. We need to fill the 7th squad's ranks as quickly as possible. Yes, their relationship was now essentially that of superior and subordinate. Although Shisui was stronger, he admired Uchiha Yoru more, so he had no complaints about becoming the vice captain of the 7th squad. On the contrary, he was filled with satisfaction. Brother Yoru, recruitment has begun, and the review process should be completed in 3 days at most. Ninjas are extremely efficient. After all, they were trained as weapons from the beginning. Moreover, the police department wasn't entirely composed of Uchiha members. There were also civilian ninjas, since it was a department. Although the police department was practically Uchiha's private armed force, if it only recruited members of its own clan, aside from the question of whether there would be enough people, the Uchiha would have been isolated long ago. The Uchiha were truly isolated by the various clans of Konoha after the Nine Tails incident, since before that, the Uchiha had always been at the center of the village. Furthermore, The police department also needs public attention, such as keeping the Hokage informed of its movements. Similarly, the Uchiha clan needs civilian ninjas as cannon fodder, or rather, as tools in their hands. The Uchiha merely controls all the real power within the police department, while the clan's ninjas also need to communicate with the village. Half of the ninjas form ninja teams to carry out missions, and the other powerful clans do the same. Looking at Shisui's expression, Uchiha Yoru narrowed his eyes and slowly said, "Shisui, this time remember to focus on bringing Orochimaru's followers here. Also, from now on, the 7th Police Division will no longer represent the Uchiha, but also Orochimaru." As he said this, Uchiha Yoru took out a list from the side, focusing on the Hyuga clan members. The 7th Police Squad is still short one of its 2 vice captains. I think the Hyuga clan is perfect. Remember to ask them what they think, and remember, there are also the Inuzuka, Aburame, and other clans within the village. Regardless of what decisions the various clans make, one thing remains: this time we represent Orochimaru-sensei, not the Uchiha. So you must understand the importance of the 7th Police Squad. Shisui looked up at Uchiha Yoru, who was wearily rubbing his temples, his brow furrowed with exhaustion. This sight filled Shisui with guilt, as if the heavy responsibility of the clan rested entirely on Yoru's shoulders. Brother Yoru, if this continues, the 7th Squad will become a leaky sieve. Although Uchiha Shisui was powerful, he clearly lacked political acumen. He had explained things so clearly, yet Yoru still didn't understand. Looking up at Shisui's worried face, Shisui gave a wry smile, rubbed his temples, sighed, and shook his head, explaining. "Shisui, your strength is undeniable, befitting the Uchiha's #1 genius, but you're still too inexperienced in politics. You are the future of the clan, and you need to really think about politics more carefully. The 7th Police Division is essentially a gift from the clan to Orochimaru-sensei. Therefore, the 7th Division no longer obeys the police department, nor the Uchiha, but Orochimaru-sensei. The future 5th Hokage." At this point, Uchiha Yoru gave him a knowing look, while Shisui clearly only vaguely understood. "I understand what you're saying, Yoruni." This is the clan's gesture. Clearly, Shisui only understood the surface meaning. The 7th Police Division was indeed the Uchiha's pledge of allegiance, but in Orochimaru's hands, it was different. It was no longer a simple private armed force, but represented Orochimaru's small political clique, the one most likely to become the 5th Hokage. At this moment, Uchiha Yoru shook his head. He finally understood why Shisui in the original story had been so distraught as to attempt suicide by jumping off a waterfall, given his personality and political acumen. The 7th Police Squad represents Orochimaru-sensei. If the various clans in the village are willing to send ninjas to join, it represents Orochimaru-sensei's power. Uchiha Yoru stated this directly, partly because he had instigated it, and partly because the Uchiha clan was happy to see it happen. The 7th Squad was a gift from the Uchiha, and this squad's recruitment of members from various clans wasn't about seeking elites, but rather about showing an attitude. Orochimaru wanted to see the attitudes of the village's various clans. It's hard to say who will ultimately become the 5th Hokage, but Orochimaru certainly has the best chance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have failed to choose a Hokage for 2 or 3 years after the Nine-Tails attack in the original story, ultimately leading to Orochimaru's defection. It's easy to imagine that Orochimaru's inability to become Hokage, aside from the opinions of certain high-ranking officials, is primarily due to Danzo and the 3rd Hokage. If Danzo still wanted to become Hokage, he wouldn't agree to such a young and uncontrollable Hokage. The 3rd Hokage's reluctance likely stemmed from his belief that Orochimaru had already gone astray. As for the Sarutobi clan and other families behind them, they were simply going with the flow and didn't want their own interests to be harmed. Please support. Chapter 46 writes. Inside the office, seeing Shisui's hesitant expression, Uchiha Yoru naturally knew what the other was thinking, but he didn't want to bring it up. Some things could only be remembered forever if kept to oneself. The 7th Division of the police department needs to be operating normally in a week. I'll have to trouble you this time, Shisui. Hearing Uchiha Yoru's solemn tone, Shisui quickly suppressed his wandering thoughts and nodded respectfully. Don't worry, Brother Yoru, the 7th Division of the police department will be absolutely fine in a week. Looking at Shisui's assurance, Uchiha Yoru gave him a deep look, then slowly lowered his head, giving the impression of concealing something. The 7th Division of the police department not only represents the Uchiha, but also Orochimaru-sensei's contact with the various clans in the village, so the focus of their actions will be different in the future. It can be said that this 7th division is a miniature version of Orochimaru's power, and it is foreseeable that it will definitely attract the attention of all the major clans in Konoha. Brother Yoru, you mean? Shisui was still somewhat puzzled. The former police department represented the Uchiha clan, and its responsibility was law enforcement. Any crime within the village fell under their jurisdiction. But now, Yoru was speaking in such a solemn tone, it was clear things were different. Seeing Shisui's confusion, Yoru lowered his gaze further, as if he were in darkness, and said in a hoarse, deep voice, "From now on, the 7th Police Division will implement a policy of ninja supremacy in law enforcement, with the major clans taking precedence among the ninjas." Upon hearing this, Shisui's expression changed drastically. He looked up at Yoru, who had made this decision, and closed his eyes wearily, as if he had made an incredibly difficult decision. The meaning was clear. Under his leadership, this was also a political signal to Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, elevating the status of ninjas while clearly defining ranks within the ninja community. To put it bluntly, when powerful clans and ordinary ninjas commit offenses, the powerful clans turn a blind eye, while ordinary ninjas simply handle matters according to the rules. Similarly, in disputes between civilians and ninjas, the ninjas are favored. Although not explicitly stated, a clear hierarchy is established. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Shisui's face darkened, and he couldn't help but say in a deep voice, "Brother Yoru, this isn't wartime. Doing this will bring immense criticism. This kind of unspoken rule, which almost divides people into different social classes, is only implemented during wartime. After all, ninjas are constantly on the front lines under constant stress, and returning home makes them extremely prone to causing trouble. Now that the Third Shinobi World War is over, the higher-ups have ordered the police department to manage the village's security, especially at this crucial moment. If they don't do a good job, wouldn't the village distrust the Uchiha even more?" Shisui, with a sharper tone, Uchiha Yoru opened his bloodshot, weary eyes. "Some people have already made their moves. Orochimaru-sensei is being sidelined, and the village is delaying the election of the 5th Hokage. Only in this way can Orochimaru-sensei avoid losing the support of the major clans. Indeed, this clear protection of the ninja community, especially the major clans, while somewhat unfair to the common people, also elevates the status of ninjas. The benefits are enormous. No one dislikes a high position, especially a ninja wielding immense power. Shisui, you must understand. Although Orochimaru-sensei is being sidelined, the village absolutely cannot be without his voice. If it truly comes to that, the 5th Hokage's fate will be greatly threatened, while Uchiha Yoru alone cannot represent Orochimaru. If he gathers countless Orochimaru followers under his command, then the collective voice will be Orochimaru's." After pondering for a long time, Shisui finally sighed softly and nodded, saying, "Brother Yoru, I understand. Thank you for your hard work." In Shisui's eyes, Uchiha Yoru was clearly someone pushed forward by the clan. This position was tempting, but also extremely dangerous. He could already see his elder brother exhausted from the political struggles, even feeling a sense of disgust towards politics. Go down. Some dark things need to be done. In the future, Shisui, you must become a genius in the sunlight. At this moment, it seemed that all the pressure was on Uchiha Yoru's shoulders. Although he had taken the position of captain of the police department, it was a hot potato. Because in the political battles, Uchiha Yoru was Orochimaru's representative in name only. A slight mistake could make him a victim of the power struggle between the two sides. Even those who didn't understand politics knew how hot this position was. "Brother Yoru, you should rest well. I'll go down first." At this moment, Shisui was filled with shame. He had all the strength, but he couldn't help at all. Instead, he had made his elder brother Yoru bear the heaviest burden. "Go on, Shisui. I'm resting for a bit, I still need to report to the teacher later." Shisui, rubbing his tired temples, looked utterly exhausted. Shisui could only turn away guiltily. Now, he could only channel his guilt into strength to lessen the pressure on his older brother. With a creak, the wooden office door closed, letting bright sunlight stream into the room. Uchiha Yoru, sitting upright in his office chair, opened his eyes. Gone was the weariness and heaviness from before. Instead, he squinted, a look of rapture on his face. He picked up a teacup, gazing wistfully at the busy figures outside the glass, especially those flickering black dots like fleas, seemingly possessing a sense of trampling ninjas underfoot. A slow smile crept onto his lips as he murmured to himself, "Is this power? Indeed, no matter the world, there's no escaping it. While ninjas wield great power, They are mostly weapons in the hands of those in power. Am I now considered someone who wields a weapon? With a rhetorical question, Uchiha Yoru smiled. No one dislikes the power that comes with it. Although he was still a weapon in the hands of some powerful figures, he was now, at least, a leader of that force. Every step he took was like walking a tightrope in the eyes of others, but in his eyes, it was a decision based on future intelligence. Otherwise, would they really believe that his great achievements were enough for his clan to grant him such power? Every police squad leader was a seasoned, elite Jonin, and what was he? His overall strength, frankly speaking, barely reached the level of a special Jonin. Looking at the Jonin appointment letter from the Hokage on the table, he immediately revealed a mocking smile. Perhaps in your eyes, someone who can be easily manipulated has never been worth your attention, power. It also requires corresponding strength. Currently, his strength was completely insufficient, but everyone in Konoha had tacitly accepted it. He accepted the hot potato. His confidence stemmed not only from knowing the future changes but also from his self-confidence, confidence that he could quickly become worthy of the position. Thanks to brother for the 600 Kidian coins reward. Thank you for your support, brothers. Please continue reading next Monday and Tuesday to support me. I'm relying on reading to boost my recommendation and level up. Chapter 47 Greed. The Craving for Power. A secret underground research base. Chidori, amidst the crackling thunder and the cry of a bird, a flash of lightning streaked across the ground. Within the base, Uchiha Yoru's eyes flashed with a Sharingan's Tsutomu, and with a single thrust of Chidori, the figure struck was instantly reduced to ashes. In a split second, the straight sword at his waist was drawn. Clang. Clang. The straight sword slashed at the kunai. The next moment, Uchiha Yoru's figure moved with lightning speed, charging forward relentlessly, his exquisite swordsmanship flashing with a cold light. And within that cold light was Orochimaru, who now wore a nonchalant, twisted smile, his hands gripping the kunai as he continuously parried. Your swordsmanship is not bad. If your mastery of lightning attribute were even stronger, and you mastered chakra nature transformation, you could truly unleash the sword's power, Orochimaru offered a fair assessment. The next moment, a flash of light appeared, and Orochimaru transformed into a mud clone. Seeing this, Uchiha Yoru gasped in surprise. The Sannin's power was undeniable, their hand seal speed was second to none. After all, Orochimaru's hand seal stats were at their maximum. Wind release. Great breakthrough. With a sudden shout, Orochimaru appeared in the sky. With a single hand seal, he unleashed a powerful hurricane. Uchiha Yoru below noticed too late, hastily making a defensive move against the approaching gale. Rumble. The earth cracked instantly, and the hurricane whipped up a layer of topsoil. Finally, amidst this whirling smoke, Orochimaru slowly landed, a hoarse smile appearing on his face as he looked at the figure within. Hell, is this the terror of bloodline limits? Night Lord, your talent seems to have been unlocked with the advancement of your bloodline. In just the last 2 months, your chakra talent, both in quantity and control, has surpassed that of ordinary ninjas. Orochimaru, with a hoarse smile, looked at the figure in the thick fog with a strange, art-appreciating gaze, and finally let out a low chuckle. Interesting, very interesting. As expected, the human body possesses endless treasures. In fact, it's not just bloodline families. Some ordinary ninjas are mediocre in the early stages, but after reaching a certain threshold and breaking through, they suddenly become extremely talented in a certain field. And bloodline limits seem even more obvious. Once awakened or advanced, the body undergoes a very significant enhancement. The most typical example is Haku, who instantly killed everyone after fully awakening his bloodline, very weak before full awakening. As the smoke cleared, Uchiha Yoru coughed repeatedly, his entire body filled with a stinging pain. He grimaced as he walked out, looking at Orochimaru in the distance with a strange smile. He immediately said with a wry smile, Orochimaru-sensei, you went too far. The C-rank ninjutsu in Orochimaru's hands was like a hurricane, though he was holding back. But after the hurricane swept over him, Uchiha Yoru could clearly feel that he could barely breathe. The hurricane felt like he had entered a gravity-defying space, and his whole body felt like it had been scraped by steel wool. It was burning painful. Looking at his chief disciple, Orochimaru revealed a strange, hoarse smile. Yoru, your recent growth has been quite good. After saying that, Orochimaru's body suddenly turned into a puff of white smoke. Uchiha Yoru, watching from afar, could only smile bitterly. Shadow clone jutsu, huh? That's ridiculously strong. Without truly experiencing it, one cannot comprehend the terror of cage-level strength. They are simply not on the same level. Uchiha Yoru muttered to himself, truly unable to grasp the terrifying power of Itachi Uchiha's awakened main Gekkai Sharingan, which allowed him to instantly defeat Orochimaru. Genius? Even geniuses are divided into different levels. Looking at his tattered clothes, Uchiha reluctantly went to change, muttering, "These clothes are so expensive." With a creak, the door creaked open, revealing Orochimaru meticulously mixing test tubes in the research lab. Uchiha Yoru, now dressed in brand new clothes, entered and effortlessly picked up some documents. Looking at the documents, Uchiha Yoru began taking notes, saying to Orochimaru, "Orochimaru-sensei, the 7th Division of the Police Department will be under your command from now on." Orochimaru, who was intently watching his experiments, visibly fluctuated upon hearing this, before revealing a harsh smile. I appreciate the Uchiha's sincerity, but I wonder under what circumstances this so-called deployment is being carried out." Upon hearing this, Uchiha Yoru immediately smiled. "Orochimaru-sensei, I am the captain of the 7th Squad, so naturally I obey your orders." This meant that although he was from the Uchiha clan, he was now completely bound to Orochimaru. Hearing this, Orochimaru Saka revealed a wicked smile, slowly putting down what he was holding, turning to look at his newfound disciple, and immediately laughed. "The 7th Squad seems to be riddled with holes." Sure enough, Uchiha Yoru was secretly alarmed. He knew that Orochimaru had probably already thoroughly investigated Konoha's recent movements. Although the 7th Squad was a gift from the Uchiha clan to Orochimaru, it had also been infiltrated by various forces. After all, a large clan never bets on just one thing. "Teacher, don't worry, the 7th Division still has an elite Uchiha clan." This meant, "Teacher, rest assured, the 7th Division will handle any troublesome route missions." After all, he still has this elite force at his disposal. Clearly, he was referring to Shisui's elite unit. "Knight-kun, do you know what I saw in your eyes the first time I saw you?" Orochimaru suddenly revealed a strange smile. This sight made Uchiha Knight curious, and he couldn't help but ask, "Please tell me, teacher." As for being wary of Orochimaru, the vast difference in strength made any wariness futile. Especially after spending time together, Orochimaru's unique charisma was indeed very attractive and reassuring, especially for someone of use. More importantly, Orochimaru wasn't yet consumed by morbid fanaticism for the Sharingan. Orochimaru licked his lips wickedly, looking at Uchiha Knight with a hoarse laugh. "Knight-kun, your eyes are filled with greed, and an endless thirst for power." Greed. A thirst for power. Uchiha Yoru was momentarily stunned by this assessment, then smiled. He had never hidden this. After all, in this dangerous ninja world, even Jonin didn't dare claim to control their own lives, let alone someone like him, and Uchiha. His greed was all paving the way for power. So, what plans does Orochimaru-sensei have for the current situation? Even though everything Konoha had done was out in the open, Orochimaru seemed to have accepted it. Not only not resisting but also hiding in the shadows, which puzzled him. Thanks to Book Friend 20220317101836342 feed for the 100 coins, and Book Friend 20180828083750703 feed for the 100 coins. Thank you to all the brothers for your support. Chapter 48 Orochimaru's Fanaticism. Konoha. Orochimaru revealed a sinister smile, so enigmatic that even Uchiha Yoru felt a chill run down his spine before he withdrew his gaze. Just a bunch of decaying beings. Power requires corresponding strength to wield, and a long enough lifespan. If Sarutobi-sensei could be 10 years younger, would your problem still exist? Yoru understood the first part of Orochimaru's words, but the second part immediately caused him to frown in confusion, secretly shocked. It seemed Orochimaru had come to realize the fragility of life. The fragility of life on the battlefield, coupled with the fact that the former Third Hokage, with age, had begun to focus on political maneuvering, made Orochimaru even more acutely aware of life's fragility. No wonder Orochimaru was practically invincible in his later years. His various ninjutsu were entirely researched to target the fragility of life. Although aware of these things, Uchiha Yoru could only feign ignorance, saying in a low voice, "Orochimaru-sensei, the clan elders say the Sarutobi clan seems to be preparing to nominate Sarutobi Shinosuke as the 5th Hokage." Upon hearing this, Orochimaru's pupils visibly contracted. Contrary to his usual calm demeanor, but he still managed to control his emotions, revealing a disdainful smile. Sarutobi Shinosuke is nothing to worry about. At this moment, Orochimaru exuded an unprecedented confidence. This confidence wasn't blind. As one of the legendary Sannin, he had repeatedly distinguished himself in the Second and Third Shinobi World Wars, and was not someone easily surpassed. Moreover, Orochimaru had now formed a new power base in Konoha, especially after the Fourth Hokage's death. Those who had previously wavered had almost all sided with Orochimaru, while the Hokage lineage was merely a group of clans fearing for their interests to be harmed. With a leak of information about Orochimaru's return to the village from the border, the situation at the border, which had just stabilized, seems to have become somewhat turbulent again, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Uchiha Yoru mentioned the current situation at the border. Orochimaru, upon hearing this, licked his lips and said with a smile, "The ninja world is never short of bloodshed, however, everything will stabilize eventually, it's just a matter of time." At this moment, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes with an air of confidence. A bunch of rotten beings, he thought. In his plan, this period of instability was perfect for him to use as an opportunity to study the ninjutsu of pursuing immortality. Orochimaru was actually a very easy person to get along with, he just wanted to conduct his research quietly. Perhaps becoming Hokage would allow him to do so even better. Looking at Orochimaru's confident and wicked smile, Uchiha Yoru's eyes held a strange look. He thought to himself, perhaps your confidence is not wrong, but it's precisely because you're so sure of yourself that you don't know that he's capable of abandoning you in the end. Orochimaru probably didn't expect the Konoha leadership to be so ruthless. It was truly a case of a warrior cutting off his own arm. For the sake of Konoha's stability and to avoid political turmoil, they directly drove one of the legendary Sannin, Orochimaru, to defect. Perhaps the Third Hokage never anticipated things would spiral out of control. He at most only wanted to damage Orochimaru's prestige. But sometimes, once things begin, they become uncontrollable. Orochimaru had decided to use a static approach to deal with the ever-changing political landscape. The final outcome is unknown to others, but Uchiha Yoru knew one thing very well: Orochimaru would ultimately defect. The reason the Konoha leadership could make such a decision was likely because Orochimaru's power base was too deeply entrenched and complex. Only a swift and decisive action could resolve the situation. Orochimaru-sensei, the prisons under the jurisdiction of the village's police department can secretly provide you with test subjects. You only need to give the word. Knowing Orochimaru's political leanings, Uchiha Yoru nodded with a smile. Since Orochimaru hadn't said anything, it meant he approved of Yoru's approach of using the 7th Police Division to cultivate relationships with various clans. Yoru also addressed Orochimaru's true concerns. Sure enough, upon hearing about research, a wicked smile appeared on Orochimaru's face. Thank you for your hard work, Yoru-kun. Human experimentation requires ninja test subjects. It would be easier at the border, given the large number of small villages and the presence of wandering ninjas and foreign ninjas, which they could secretly capture. But back in the village, it's a bit more complicated. However, it seems the problem is solved now, since the police department is responsible for almost all of Konoha's prisons. Isn't it normal for prisoners to die in prison? Lord Orochimaru. Just then, a figure slowly entered the research room, respectfully bowing to Orochimaru. However, when Uchiha Yoru saw the newcomer, he was secretly startled. So this was Root? Wearing a cat-like mask with green and red patterns around it, Orochimaru revealed a morbidly greedy gaze as he stared at the newcomer. It's Katori. You've come at the right time. Lie down on the bed. Something seemed off about these words, but the Root ninja numbly lay down on the bed. Uchiha Yoru stared wide-eyed as Orochimaru appraised the Root youth before him with a morbidly greedy look, as if he were examining a rare treasure. If Uchiha Yoru hadn't known Orochimaru's personality well, this scene could easily have been misunderstood. Seemingly noticing Uchiha Yoru's shock, Orochimaru let out a hoarse laugh tinged with excitement. Yoru-kun, this is the wood-release experimental body armor that was unexpectedly successful. Assist me in recording everything? Yes, Uchiha Yoru nodded respectfully. He wasn't like Sasuke, who had promised someone his body was theirs to do as they pleased, then acted arrogantly and went back on his word. Actually, going back on one's word wasn't a big deal. After all, it's normal to back out when faced with life and death. But at least you voluntarily asked someone to let you do whatever you want with your body. As long as you give me power, at least show some respect. Without a conflict of interest, he still respected Orochimaru's character. Orochimaru, already expertly placing various instruments on the armor's body, began some kind of perverse test. Blood draws were standard procedure. The blood contains a barrage of technical jargon left Uchiha Yoru, whose knowledge was clearly insufficient. Luckily, he was just taking notes. Only Orochimaru stared with a morbid fascination at the various data from the examination and the precious blood collected. Monday and Tuesday are crucial for advancing, so please, brothers, don't skip reading this. Support me. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49 Maoyu's Ayan. Night Lord, do you know what the appearance of A represents? After completing all the examinations, Orochimaru rarely showed a morbid, uncontrolled smile. Uchiha Knight, standing beside him, immediately replied, would release. No. You're wrong. Orochimaru immediately decided on his student's answer, while he himself stared feverishly at the precious documents in his hands, his snake eyes filled with fervor. This represents bloodline limits. From nothing to something, even ordinary people can cultivate bloodline limits. Good heavens. Looking at Orochimaru before him, Uchiha Knight was immediately astonished. It has to be said, the thought process of scientists is truly outrageous. He had thought Orochimaru wanted to cultivate a batch of ninjas who could use wood release. Even if it was a watered-down version, it was still wood release, wasn't it? Who would have thought that Orochimaru had already surpassed him, now thinking about cultivating various bloodline limits? If wood release could be cultivated, then what about other bloodline limits? Bloodline limits. Surrounding the mysterious existence that has never disappeared from the entire ninja world, the highest order during the Warring States period was the Bloodline clan, representing immense power, followed by the clans of secret techniques. If this problem could be solved, and bloodline clans could be cultivated indiscriminately, the ninja world would be shaken to its core. Orochimaru-sensei, you mean, at this moment, Uchiha Yoru seemed to have thought of something. Upon seeing this, Orochimaru nodded like a madman and said, that's right. Although Kagura's wood release is not as good as the first Hokage's, as long as we can overcome this difficulty in cultivation, I will be able to create a bloodline clan myself. Damn it. Uchiha Yoru couldn't help but curse inwardly. Why did his thought process come back to this again? He thought Orochimaru would say that he wanted to cultivate all the bloodlines in the ninja world, but he came full circle. He really couldn't understand the thought process of scientists at all. However, on the surface, Uchiha Yoru feigned excitement, saying, if Orochimaru-sensei can train a few wood-release ninjas, then he can directly secure the position of 5th Hokage. Uchiha Yoru's excited demeanor sent a chill down Orochimaru's spine. A look of frustration flashed in his snake-like eyes. There's still a difference in our understanding, he thought. How could you even think of this, becoming the 5th Hokage with a few wood-release ninjas? Is that great? Shouldn't it be greater for him to personally create a bloodline limit? Like the legendary sage of 6 paths, he would be a god capable of creating all things. Two people, two heads, yet their thoughts were completely opposite. Orochimaru, who was clearly excited, suddenly realized that no one could understand his joy, and he was truly frustrated. He waved his hand hoarsely and said, Yoru-kun, Kagami is with me for now. Remember to keep it a secret. It seems that Orochimaru got Kagami from Danzo. Although wood release is rare, Kagami's wood release can only be considered a weakened bloodline limit. Compared to the first Hokage's wood release, it's worlds apart, so Danzo was willing to part with it. Or perhaps Danzo and Orochimaru are now joining forces to restart the wood release plan, probably hoping to create a few more wood release ninjas. After all, no one can have too many bloodline limit ninjas. What if another wood release user at the first Hokage level pops up by accident? Would that be a fortune? Lord Orochimaru, Kagami, who had just undergone a thorough examination and had a lot of blood drawn, was swaying slightly after getting out of bed, but still respectfully bowed to Orochimaru. Orochimaru, already accustomed to the brainwashing and manipulation by root, showed little reaction, merely waving his hand casually and saying, Kagami, thank you for your hard work. I'll let you know if I need you. Clearly, Danzo had already assigned Kagami to work under Orochimaru, since Orochimaru was now considered a member of Root. Yes, Kagami, numb like an emotionless puppet, showed no concern for his future, acting as a loyal guinea pig. Uchiha Yoru, Watching Kagami and Orochimaru's infatuated expressions, secretly pondered, Orochimaru could create bloodline limits, and he must also possess some kind of ninjutsu. Back at the police department, Uchiha Yoru looked exhausted. Sitting in his office, a few leaves occasionally fell from his palm under his desk. Strangely, these leaves seemed odd, as if they had been electrocuted, with faint arcs of electricity flashing as they fell. Uchiha Yoru, holding a leaf in his palm after taking it from the drawer of his new ninja room, smiled. He clearly felt the progress. Indeed, strengthening a certain aspect of his physical talent was equivalent to strengthening that talent itself. Before awakening his Sharingan, he was merely a decent ninja among ordinary ninjas. After awakening his Sharingan, he had clearly undergone a strengthening process, and he could feel that his training was much faster than before. For example, what used to take a month of training to increase his chakra could be achieved in 10 days after awakening his bloodline and strengthening his body. Now, with the two-tomo Sharingan and the strengthening of his physique, his training speed had indeed increased again, reaching genius level. Especially in lightning-style training, I should be considered genius level now, he muttered to himself, a slight smile appearing on his tired face. In the ninja world, strength was the most basic requirement, status alone wasn't enough. One had to have matching strength. Similarly, until he reached the level of the first Hokage or Uchiha Madara, who could single-handedly overpower an entire ninja village, he could only obediently integrate into the group. Orochimaru-sensei, you truly live up to your reputation. Every time he interacted with Orochimaru, his training direction was rearranged. Just as Orochimaru predicted, he was indeed the scientist of the ninja world, directly analyzing his talent. Orochimaru's training plan was to first strengthen his lightning attribute nature transformation, while simultaneously focusing on taijutsu training over the next 3 months. After all, with the Sharingan's enhancement, his ninjutsu learning speed was rapid. Just as Uchiha Yoru was pondering Orochimaru's training plan, a knock sounded on the office door. Knock knock knock, come in. The office door opened, and Uchiha Shisui entered, followed by a female ninja carrying a stack of documents, though she looked rather young. Uchiha Yoru didn't seem to notice, simply smiling at Shisui and saying, "Shisui, what's the matter?" Seeing the barely concealed weariness on Uchiha Yoru's smiling face, Shisui felt a pang of guilt. His older brother had shouldered too much for the clan. "Brother Yi, the recruitment for the 7th police squad is complete. This is the list of everyone in the squad." A thick stack of documents was placed directly on the table. Each document contained a ninja's photo, background, grades from the Ninja Academy, substitute teachers, and their supervising teachers after graduation. "Brother Yi, this is Uzuki Yugeo. She's quite skilled at handling data." Uchiha Shisui introduced a female ninja behind him with a smile. He had personally selected her to deliberately lighten his older brother's workload. Today is Tuesday. Please continue reading. Chapter 50 is full of acquaintances. "My lord, I am Uzuki Yugeo. Please take care of me in the future." At this moment, Uzuki Yugeo's innocent and youthful appearance revealed a mixture of excitement, bewilderment, and utter helplessness. She was exactly like a novice ninja. This scene, while showing no outward expression, stirred a storm within Uchiha Yoru. Uzuki Yugeo. No wonder she looked so familiar. Beneath her long purple hair, her youthful and shy face, something was amiss. "Brother Yoru, Uzuki Yugeo comes from a commoner family. She just graduated last year with a perfect score in her academic subjects, and she's meticulous enough to assist the police department." Clearly, Uchiha Shisui's relaxed smile indicated he was looking for an assistant, a clerical secretary, essentially an office handyman. After all, every department and team needs assistants. For clerical positions, most are women, while for martial positions, elite ninjas are chosen. Seeing Shisui's kind expression, Uchiha Yoru smiled as well. Looking at the still naive Uzuki Yugeo, who had only recently graduated, he smiled and said, "All right, go and familiarize yourself with the work." "Thank you, sir." Uzuki Yugeo bowed deeply, her face filled with excited anticipation for the future. However, the instant Uzuki Yugeo left and closed the door, Uchiha Yoru's smile gradually turned cold. The innocence in Uzuki Yugeo's eyes vanished as she closed the door as well, but Shisui, standing nearby, noticed nothing. The first page of the personnel file featured Uzuki Yugeo. Uchiha Yoru narrowed his eyes, studying the information. She had graduated from the Ninja Academy at 11, more than half a year ago. Her instructor was an ordinary chunin, and her teammates were all civilians. She was described as meticulous and possessed basic medical ninjutsu, her specialty being swordsmanship. Brother Yoru, Shisui looked at Uchiha Yoru, who was constantly flipping through the files, and immediately showed a puzzled expression. However, after reviewing all the documents, Uchiha Yoru's eyes flashed with a cold light. He looked up at Shisui with a grim expression, startling the latter. Shisui, the 7th Division of the police department has indeed been infiltrated like a sieve. What? Shisui was still bewildered, but Uchiha Yoru slammed the 3 documents on the table impatiently. Uchiha Shisui might lack political acumen, but he was still an elite Jonin. When he saw his older brother pull out these 3 documents, his face immediately darkened. One of them was about Juzuki Yugeo, a document he had specifically chosen, not only because of her clean background, but also because he had placed it on top. Brother Yoru, should we? Shisui, having done so many dark things for Root, was no longer the naive man he once was. His eyes gleamed with a cold light, as if he were asking if Shisui should slit his own throat. However, upon seeing this, Uchiha Yoru rubbed his temples in exasperation, staring intently at the 3 men's files before finally shaking his head and saying, I only learned about these 3 from Orochimaru-sensei by chance. As for how many others are secretly involved, nobody knows. Keep a close eye on these 3 while Shisui secretly investigates everyone else. Don't alert them, have someone keep a close eye on Yuzuki Yugeo and Gekko Heiate. As for Yakashi Kabuto, he's from Root. Yakashi Kabuto, Gekko Heiate, and Yuzuki Yugeo, these were the 3 files he had pulled out. He knew them, otherwise, who could have found them? But upon hearing this, Shisui felt a surge of anger, his dissatisfaction with Root intensifying. The Uchiha clan had practically made this 7th Division independent, entirely under Orochimaru-sama's control, and a secret black love for Root. They were doing the dirty work, and yet they weren't trusted and had spies secretly sent out. This was what infuriated Shisui the most. Uchiha Yoru shook his head, but inwardly sneered. Knowing wasn't scary, not knowing was. Shisui, the calluses on Yuzuki Yugeo's tiger's mouth prove she's trained in swordsmanship since childhood, which matches the information. After all, she's a commoner ninja. As for which faction she belongs to, don't dig too deep. Just keep an eye on them secretly, Brother Yoru. Shisui hesitated, seeing Yoru's refusal to let him investigate further. But Yoru's expression turned serious, and he said in a deep voice, Shisui. Obey orders. Yes, Uchiha Shisui reflexively agreed, but a question lingered in his mind. Why was Brother Yoru stopping him from investigating further? And when he saw the identities of these 3, Brother Yoru's eyes were filled with disbelief and pain. Could it be? Could it be? Uchiha Shisui grew increasingly alarmed as he thought about it. He dared not retrace his steps and lowered his head. Uchiha Yoru, witnessing this, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Telling Shisui directly would have the effect. The more he forbade Shisui's investigation, the more it itched to investigate. When Shisui secretly uncovered the mastermind, he would know everything. From the beginning, he feigned pain and shock, letting Shisui know he already knew who these 3 were working for. But for the sake of the village and the clan, he directly ordered no investigation. When Shisui learned the truth, he would only feel the weight of his burden. He had gone to great lengths for the Uchiha clan. After all, he didn't want to personally experience the night of the clan's annihilation years later. While the pairing of Yuzuki Yugeo and Gekko Heiate was tragic, it's clear from the original story that both were members of the Anbu. When did the Anbu begin training? He didn't know the answer to that, but one thing he was certain of was that Konoha was currently short of manpower, and with the Third Hokage returning to power, he would definitely be focusing on developing his own faction's strength. Anbu members, Uchiha Yoru sneered inwardly. Sending someone of this age to infiltrate was indeed the most likely way to be overlooked. During the Chunin exams, both of them were special Jonin. Heiate Gekko was understandable, being a Kekkei ninja, but wasn't the transparent release the best for infiltration? Yuzuki Yugeo, on the other hand, was just an ordinary civilian. Discovering promising talents and secretly nurturing them early on was a common tactic of the Anbu, and as for Kabuto Yakashi, everyone knew he was from Root. Brother Yoru, should we just deal with them casually? Or put them to work in prison? It was obvious that they were spies sent by forces within the village. If Uchiha Shisui didn't act immediately, he would at least push them to the margins. However, Uchiha Yoru feigned exhaustion and a listless demeanor, waving his hand and sighing, you can guard against them for a while, but not forever. Just pretend you don't know. Since you've already placed Yuzuki Yugeo by my side, don't alert them. As for these two, Gecko Hayate's information is quite ordinary, so arrange for him to join the patrol and security team according to normal procedures. Yakashika Buto's information shows he's skilled in medical ninjutsu, so add him to the logistics team. Remember, don't alert these three, understood? Uchiha Yoru chose not to alert these three. After all, since he already knew their backgrounds, pretending not to know was sometimes the best course of action. Otherwise, if they sent more spies, they would be completely in the dark. Shisui, continue your investigation secretly and see how many of the people recruited this time are problematic. Uchiha Yoru didn't believe there were only a few, there must be others. Shisui, upon hearing this, showed a solemn expression, feeling a pang of sorrow. Why were they so wary of the Uchiha clan, even though they were from the same village? Thank you to for the 100 coin reward and 20230111121577703 feet for the 100 coin reward. Please continue reading. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.